Chapter 1661. Yiqing Luo herself was an alchemist. She was extremely sensitive towards the smell of medicinal herbs. The moment the drowsiness hit her, Yiqing Luo realized that someone had drugged her. Hence, she beat them at their own game and pretended to fall asleep. From Wolf Saint Dharma and Pharaoh He's words, they must have something important to deal with, or perhaps they needed to discuss. Otherwise, they wouldn't have gone through so much trouble to drug her who was already controlled by him. There were at least 5 people who entered the room. She heard Wolf Saint Dharma and Pharaoh He's voices, and one Butterfly Saint Dharma, and one Yiqing Jian. And the last person, who was he? From the start till the end, that person had not spoken a single word. She remained silent for some time as she sensed that there wasn't any fluctuation in the surrounding air. She then quietly got up and slowly walked to the door. The last people to leave were Wolf Saint Dharma and Yiqing Jian. There wasn't any incantation on this room door. Yiqing Luo easily opened the room door. What entered her eyes was an extremely dark, long corridor. A few voices were heard from the next room. Yiqing Luo looked around to ascertain that there wasn't anyone guarding this long corridor. She silently recited the secret method, which she had memorized in her heart. Her figure flashed in a blink of an eye. She had already silently appeared at the door of the next room. This was a blink movement secret method. It was extremely different from her own footwork. Blink movement secret method could achieve instantaneous movement under the condition of no aura fluctuation. And her set of footwork relied on one word: fast. The faster her footwork, the more violent the turbulence in the air. The group of people in the next room were all well-known figures from the dark forces. Any fluctuation in the air was unable to escape their senses. Yiqing Luo didn't dare to take the risk. Using the blink movement secret method, as long as the timing was stable, no one would discover it. Then no one would discover it. Nearing the door, she could clearly hear Wolf Saint Dharma's angry voice coming from the room. "He trash. This plan was planned by me and that Heavenly Academy's trash director 2 months ago. For this plan, how much manpower and resources have I wasted? My Wolf Saint Dharma's forces have been annihilated." Wolf Saint Dharma slammed the table heavily. "This is a foolproof plan. If it succeeds, we can escape completely. If it wasn't for the fact that your elder's party was so useless and couldn't even protect a formation, would this plan have failed? Do you still want to push all the blame to me? Useless Crane, let me tell you, the failure of the plan is a problem of your elder society's ability. It has nothing to do with me." Bang, bang, bang. There was the sound of things being rummaged through. Yiqing Luo made use of that explosion, and her fingers moved slightly opening that tightly shut window. Through the gap, Yiqing Luo saw Pharaoh. He overturned the table and pointed angrily at the Wolf Saint technique. "This Pharaoh has exhausted all my energy to save you from Yiqing Luo's hands. Don't you dare to push all the blame for the failure of the plan on this Pharaoh." Lang Shengfa's face instantly turned ashen. His sinister eyes stared coldly at Pharaoh He, his eyes filled with killing intent. "Help!" This word completely provoked the Wolf Saint technique, especially to save him from that slut Yiqing Luo. Wasn't this indirectly saying that he wasn't even comparable to that silly lass Yiqing Luo? Chapter 1662. Pharaoh He had specially emphasized the words 15 years old. Wolf Saint Magic's face darkened. His 5 fingers clenched the armrest of the wooden wheelchair, leaving a long mark. "Pharaoh He, you're wrong." Yiqing Qian couldn't bear to see her lover get angry, so she caressed Wolf Saint Magic's chest and raised her beautiful eyes to look at Pharaoh He. The moment she opened her mouth, Pharaoh He stared at her in disgust. "Who do you think you are? Just a slut who relies on spreading her legs to climb up. This Pharaoh and Saint Magic are talking. Do you have the right to interrupt?" Saying that, he glanced at Wolf Saint Magic scornfully. "You've been in the Dark Forces for such a long time, yet you still don't know the Dark Forces rules. This Pharaoh wants to see how long you can protect her." Yiqing Qian pursed her red lips as she lowered her head with reddened eyes. Wolf Saint Magic frowned and reached out to hold Yiqing Qian's hand. "He trash. Do you only know how to shoot at women now?" Enough. Both of you shut up. The beautiful lady, sitting in the corner, stood up irritably, quarreling over and over again. Just a few words. Is there any meaning in quarreling? I die. I die. Don't be angry. I won't talk anymore. Pharaoh, he immediately came forward attentively. Butterfly Saint Magic glanced coldly at Pharaoh, then looked at Wolf Saint Magic. His lordship seal is only lacking the last 2 hurdles before the seal can be completely lifted. Speaking of his lordship, the flames between Wolf Saint Magic and Pharaoh he were restrained. This time the plan to absorb a large number of souls has failed. The day of his lordship's lifting will be delayed for a period of time. Butterfly Saint Magic's words made the room fall into silence. This failure was not only about not being able to obtain a large number of souls. It had also completely exposed the dark forces' motive in Nirvana Realm. Nirvana Realm would also raise their vigilance and think of ways to resist the dark forces' attack. It would not be as easy as before for them to obtain a large number of clean souls of young cultivators. No matter which one of you wants to get away or push the blame to someone, when his lordship regains consciousness, you will all accept his lordship's punishment. The Butterfly Saint technique looked to the 2 of them. So, it's useless for the 2 of you to push the blame to each other. Pharaoh, he nodded repeatedly and answered yes. Anyone could tell that he was interested in the sacred butterfly technique from his attentive manner. The Wolf Saint lowered his head and did not refute. He did not refute, which meant that he agreed with the Butterfly Saint technique. Instead of debating whether it's right or wrong, why don't we carefully think about the cause and effect? Think clearly about why the soul assimilating formation failed. Suddenly, a clear voice that was as gentle as the wind resounded in the room. That voice entered Yi Qing Luo's ears. Yi Qing Luo's body instantly stiffened. A trace of astonishment flashed through her eyes. She focused her gaze and looked through the gap again, searching for the figure of the person who spoke. Sure enough, beside the sacred butterfly technique sat a man in a brown robe woven with gold. The man's face was like jade, and the corners of his mouth hooked into a cordial smile. He looked very much like a graceful young master. That face. Yi Qing Luo was no stranger to it. Shi Clan's young master, Shi Shanglan. Yin Xiaoyi's fiancé. It was actually him. He was indeed related to the dark forces. He got close to Yin Xiao indeed with ill intentions. Earlier in the room where she was locked up, the 5th person that she sensed was Shi Shanglan. What was the relationship between him and the dark forces? Chapter 1663. Young Master, she is right. Rather than arguing about right or wrong, why don't we find out the reason why our plan failed? The anger on Butterfly Saint Mage's face was immediately replaced by a smile. Her eyes were filled with affection as she looked at Shi Shanglan coquettishly. But Shi Shanglan didn't show any signs of being moved by her goodwill. Shi Shanglan's face was still gentle like water. The smile on his lips was distant, but not impolite. Pharaoh, his face sunk slightly and revealed some displeasure. But he didn't flare up like how he did with Wolf Saint Mage. Instead, he suppressed his anger and echoed Shi Shanglan's words. Young Master Shi's words are reasonable. I can't be bothered to argue with that old man. This scene made Yi Qing Luo, who was hiding in the corner to eavesdrop, felt slightly surprised. Weren't the dark forces divided into 2 factions? The Lord, who is also the King of Darkness, was the leader. Then there was the Guardian and Elder factions. Above the Guardian and Elder factions were the Saint Mage and Pharaoh. Yi Qing Luo could see clearly how arrogant Pharaoh he was in the dark forces. It could be said that Pharaoh he was second only to one and above everyone else in the dark forces. His attitude towards Shi Shanglan was obviously respectful. Pharaoh he admired Butterfly Saint Mage, and Butterfly Saint Mage gave such an obvious, suggestive look to Shi Shanglan. Pharaoh he was actually indifferent. It showed that Pharaoh he didn't dare to become enemies with Shi Shanglan. What was Shi Shanglan's identity? Even Pharaoh, he was afraid of him. The atmosphere in the house eased up a lot because of Shi Shanglan's words. Wolf Saint Mage remained silent for a long time before he spoke. Speaking of the reason why we failed, it made me think of something. His sinister eyes looked at Pharaoh he. Trash he. Do you still remember what you swore when you set up the soul assimilation array? Old Wolf, do you still want to quarrel with me? Pharaoh's face turned cold as he stared back at Wolf Saint Mage angrily. The wolf Xingfa looked at him and said indifferently, "You said that once the soul assimilating array is set up, no one in the Nirvana realm can destroy the formation eye of the soul assimilating array, so our people don't need to specially guard the formation eye. Otherwise, the location of the formation eye will be exposed." F***CK. Wolf Trash, do you have to F***King go against me? Come on, I'll accompany you. Pharaoh, he rushed toward the wolf Saint Law furiously. He stop right now. The butterfly's sacred technique reached out and grabbed Pharaoh Crane's collar, forcefully pulling him into the chair. You are not allowed to speak without my permission. Pharaoh Crane's face turned red. But looking at the serious expression on the butterfly saint technique's face, he could not help but shut his mouth. The butterfly's sacred technique looked at the wolf sacred technique. He is right. The soul assimilating array is an ancient dark secret technique, a sinister technique that is not tolerated by the heavenly Tao. In a lower realm like the Nirvana realm, no one would know the method to destroy the array. She pondered for a moment, and a cold glint appeared in her beautiful eyes. Even if we find the eye of the formation, no one knows how to destroy it. What Wolf Saint technique means is, there are people from the lower realm helping Yi Qing Luo. Xishang Lan could tell what Wolf Saint technique was implying. As soon as these words came out, the four of them exchanged glances, and their faces instantly turned pale. Indeed, if there were no people from the lower realm helping Yi Qing Luo, how would Yi Qing Luo know how to use the blood of the caster to extinguish the array eye? If it wasn't for the fact that the people from the lower realm had told Yi Qing Luo the method to destroy the array, how was it possible for Yi Qing Luo to destroy this array so easily? Chapter 1664. Xishang Lan's expression instantly turned grave. His handsome brows frowned slightly. If there's no one from the lower realm to teach her, she shouldn't be able to find the location of the array eye. He paused for a moment as his gentle eyes swept past the few people in the room. That gaze was as gentle as the wind. However, the few of them felt an extremely cold glint in their eyes, that kind of chill that emanated from bones. It made the few of them feel a thump in their hearts. Wolf Saint Law's concerns, I will personally investigate clearly. If there's really someone from the lower realm around Yi Qing Luo, I will return to the island and invite Father to leave the island. Upon hearing Xishang Lan's words, their faces instantly revealed a joyous expression. With young Master Shi's help, this matter will definitely be settled very quickly. Butterfly Saint Law's eyes were filled with affection and admiration. Pharaoh, he looked at Butterfly Saint Law's expression and shifted his gaze away unhappily. He clenched his fists and eased the tense expression on his face as he gave a flattering smile. Yes, young Master Shi is willing to help. Next time, our plan will definitely succeed. Butterfly Saint Law snorted lightly as her tone couldn't conceal her disgust. Yi Qing Luo, that little slut, the speed of her advancement is so fast, it must be because of the person behind her. As long as we get rid of that person, what kind of waves can that little slut create? The few of them complimented again. Yi Qing Luo, who was squatting at the corner, frowned tightly. Xishang Lan addressed himself as young master earlier. What young master was referring to? The reason why these few Dark Forces leaders were so respectful towards Xishang Lan. It was probably because of the father behind Xishang Lan. What was Xishang Lan's identity? Just as Yi Qing Luo was deep in thought. In the room, Yi Qing Jian, who had been silent all this while opened her mouth softly. What if the person behind Yi Qing Luo is Mo Xian? The few people's compliments stopped abruptly. Several pairs of eyes turned towards Yi Qing Jian in unison. Wolf Saint Law also glanced sideways at Yi Qing Jian, who was standing beside him as he frowned, as though he was annoyed with her for opening her mouth. Yi Qing Qian faced their gazes, and her expression remained unchanged. Her red lips curled upwards as a smile curled up as she spoke in a warm voice. Rumor has it that Yi Qing Luo and DMO Xian from the Imperial Palace have an intimate relationship. At this point, I have indeed witnessed it with my own eyes. After a pause, she was satisfied to see the deep meaning in everyone's eyes. She then continued, "Originally, my fourth sister had already dug away Yiqing Luo's profound heart jade, completely turning her into a waste. But unfortunately, on the day that her profound heart jade was dug out, she turned from a waste into a cultivator. Not only did she force me to retreat, even that father of mine, Three Springs Sex Patriarch, wasn't Yiqing Luo's opponent. Later on, I asked Yuchia about what happened that day. What's the matter? Butterfly Saint technique couldn't stand Yiqing Qian's purposely keeping them in suspense, as she urged. Yiqing Qian paused after each word. That day, Yiqing Luo's profound heart jade was dug out, and she was forced to drink a strong medicinal soup. In the process of rebelling against Yuchia, she seized DMO Xian. Take DMO Xian hostage? How could this be? In this world, only their lord had this ability. Who could hold DMO Xian hostage? Chapter 1665. Xishanglan pondered for a moment, then slowly nodded. He recalled that after the interclass competition in the Heavenly Academy, when Yiqing Luo came to the Shi family's courtyard, there was a man who followed beside her. A man with a strong sense of presence. It should be DMO Xian. Other than DMO Xian, no one else had such a strong aura. If that person was really DMO Xian. In addition, the Imperial Palace had been attacking the dark forces during this period of time. Yiqing Qian's words, 90%, were right. Everyone could see that. How much did DMO Xian care about Yiqing Luo? I will return to the island first to investigate this matter. Xishanglan's expression was solemn. He stood up and cupped his fists at the few people. The few of them immediately stood up and sent Xishanglan to the door. Yiqing Luo, who was at the door, immediately used her blink and returned to the room where she was locked up in the moment Xishanglan stood up. The sound of footsteps could be heard outside the door. Soon after, the footsteps gradually faded away. They should have sent him out of the Crane Palace. Soon after, the footsteps of a few people gradually approached. Yiqing Luo leaned against the side of the bed and continued to pretend to be asleep. He could clearly hear a few people grumbling outside the door. They were all silently scolding Xishanglan for using his power to bully others. After grumbling for a while, the few of them passed by the room where Yiqing Luo was locked up. Pharaoh's footsteps suddenly paused. Although the mission this time has failed, this pharaoh has brought back Yiqing Luo, this profound heart jade's vessel. I believe that it can also remove the Lord over God seal in advance. Wolf Saint Technique scoffed lightly. Even if we make use of Yiqing Luo's vessel physique to transfer profound energy to the Overlord God in advance, but to remove the seal, we still need a young and clean young man's spirit. As long as the Lord Master God's profound strength is replenished, he can temporarily wake up. When the time comes, we will naturally listen to our Lord arrangements and proceed with the next step of the plan. Pharaoh, he glanced at him coldly. What? Seeing that I, the Pharaoh, can make up for my mistakes, you feel unbalanced? We're all working for the Lord. What's the difference between you and me? The butterfly's sacred technique couldn't take it anymore and interrupted their argument. Ahi, your idea isn't bad. If we can make the Lord God awake for a short while, we'll be able to get instructions for our future actions. When Pharaoh Crane received the sacred butterfly technique's praise, he immediately went forward. Adai also thinks that my method is good, right? All right. I'll bring Yiqing Luo, that slut, to the dark sacred region now to awaken the Overlord. As he spoke, Pharaoh Crane pushed open the tightly shut door. Yiqing Luo's heart twitched violently. Darkness Sanctum? What is that place? She heard Pharaoh Crane's approaching footsteps. She could also smell the auras of those people who were already close to her. Yiqing Luo calmed her breathing. She felt a hand reaching out to her. Suddenly, the Wolf Saint Law's voice came from the door again. The Darkness Sanctuary is the place where his lordship is sealed. Are you sure it's safe to bring her there? Even now, you still doubt my secret technique? Pharaoh, he was clearly enraged. Yiqing Luo's profound jade heart had already been completely contaminated by the profound yin qi. Under his secret technique, there was no way for her to regain her senses. The Wolf Saint Law had repeatedly doubted if Yiqing Luo was really controlled by Lao AI. Wasn't this questioning his ability? Chapter 1666. Pharaoh, he swiftly conjured a hand seal. One by one, complicated incantations were spat out from his mouth. Oh no, was he testing her again? She wasn't under Pharaoh he's control. How would she know what order Pharaoh he had given her? Yiqing Luo immediately called out to Old Man Song in her heart. Last, quick, get up and kill Wolf Saint technique. Old Man Song's reminder rang in her mind. Yiqing Luo heaved a sigh of relief. Following Old Man Song's instructions, her figure suddenly moved and sprinted towards Wolf Saint technique's direction. Her palms flipped, and her palm chi was like a rainbow. Slut! Wolf Saint technique's expression changed drastically as he raised his sleeves and waved out a burst of profound yin qi. Yiqing Luo's figure paused as she slowly raised her head. A pair of charming eyes, empty and cold, without a single bit of emotion. Her pink lips trembled slightly. After a while, she spat out a hoarse but exceptionally clear word, kill. Following that, Yiqing Luo wasn't afraid of death as she faced the profound yin qi of the Wolf Saint technique and once again attacked towards the direction of the Wolf Saint technique. Enough! Enough! Wolf Saint technique believes that Yiqing Luo has been controlled by Tao Wu. Quickly stop. Yiqing Qian saw that Yiqing Luo was about to rush over. Her eyes flashed and suddenly rushed to the front of Wolf Saint technique's wooden wheelchair, helping Wolf Saint technique to block Yiqing Luo's attack. Uffed. A mouthful of blood spurted out from Yiqing Qian's mouth. Her body went limp as she fell into Wolf Saint technique's arms. Behind her, Yiqing Luo looked at Wolf Saint technique expressionlessly, her gaze filled with murderous intent. Kill. Kill! Her body stiffened as she approached Wolf Saint technique once again. Wolf Saint technique hugged the injured lady in his arms tightly, his face ashen. Enough. I believe you. Pharaoh, he delightedly canceled his finger gesture and waved at Yiqing Luo. All right, come back. Yiqing Luo's attack stopped abruptly. She immediately turned around and walked to Pharaoh He's side as she stood upright. Now, I'll take her to the darkness sacred region. Do you still have any objections? Pharaoh, he looked at Holy Wolf's ashen face and was secretly pleased. No problem. No problem. I know that no one can surpass your secret skill except for his lord. Seeing that the flames of war between the two were about to ignite again, the butterfly's sacred technique immediately stepped forward and patted Pharaoh He's shoulder. Pharaoh Crane's face was filled with pride after obtaining the goddess' approval. However, Lang Xingfa's expression grew increasingly ugly. He raised his eyes. His sinister eyes were filled with a treacherous cold light. It was as if he wanted to teach Pharaoh He a lesson. Butterfly Saint technique was well aware of Yiqing Qian's position in Wolf Saint technique's heart. She immediately pulled Pharaoh He's arm and said softly, I'll accompany you to bring Yiqing Luo to the dark sacred region, with the company of a goddess. Naturally, Pharaoh Crane was overjoyed. Calling out to Yiqing Luo, he happily followed behind the Butterfly Saint technique and left the room. Wolf Xingfa's face darkened as he lowered his head to look at the pale-faced woman lying feebly in his arms. There was a vicious look in his eyes. His slender fingers clasped Yiqing Qian's lower jaw tightly. In front of this saint technique, you occasionally play some little tricks. This saint technique pampers you and allows you to do as you please, but his eyes turned cold. His fingers suddenly relaxed as he gently caressed her seductive face. The vicious look in his eyes became extremely thick at this moment. But if you dare to use your own body as a bargaining chip to please me, I will personally destroy this body of yours. Yiqing Qian's petite body trembled slightly. A sliver of disbelief surfaced on her pale face. This sentence sounded like he was concerned about her body. He couldn't bear for her to get injured just to block his attack. But Chapter 1667. Along the way, Yiqing Luo maintained her robot state, obediently following behind Pharaoh Crane. Pharaoh's entire heart was placed on the butterfly saint technique, so he had no time to bother about Yiqing Luo. As for butterfly saint technique, she was getting impatient from Pharaoh's pestering, but on the surface, she still had to go along with a few sentences. She was slightly distracted and didn't pay much attention to Yiqing Luo. Yiqing Luo heaved a sigh of relief. If someone keeps staring at me, he would eventually give himself away. Before reaching the dark sanctuary, she could not let anyone know that she was not contaminated. Darkness Sanctum, the place where the King of Darkness was sealed. Girl, are you sure you really want to enter the Darkness Sacred Region? Old Man Song's voice was filled with worry. He knew that he had no way to persuade Yiqing Luo to give up on this idea. But based on Yiqing Luo's current ability, if something really happened, there was no way to escape. He still hadn't been able to cultivate a spiritual body, so he could only wait anxiously in the Azure Dew bracelet. If only he knew that this girl was such a troublemaker. Back then, he should have exhausted everything to cultivate the spirit body first. Even if I don't go in, I'm afraid I won't be able to leave. Yiqing Luo replied in her heart. There was no turning back now that she had snuck into the underground forces. She had no other choice but to follow her original plan and keep moving forward. Moreover, her original intention was to take the opportunity to infiltrate the Dark Coalition and find out the location of the Dark Coalition's base. Now, there was a chance to enter the Darkness Sanctuary. It was even more impossible for her to give up this opportunity. The King of Darkness was currently sealed, and he did not have any strength left. If she would do something to the Sanctuary of Darkness and ruin the King of Darkness' plan to remove the seal, it would be a heavy blow to the Dark Forces. This Darkness Sacred Region. Naturally, she had to go. That place is too dangerous. I'm worried that based on your current strength, you won't be able to handle it. Old Man Song naturally knew what Yiqing Luo was planning. However, there was no such plan. There was only a 1% chance. If it was really that easy to foil the King of Darkness's plan to remove the seal, then the King of Darkness wouldn't be able to do so. The Dark Forces would not have had the chance to turn things around. Yiqing Luo pursed her pink lips. Her slender fingers gently rubbed the profound phoenix ring on her fingertip. I'm not afraid. I believe Xian will understand what I mean. Yiqing Luo's heart felt a trace of warmth when she thought of that purple-robed man with peerless elegance. She believed in the feelings between Dmo Xian and her. Even if she said nothing, Dmo Xian would definitely understand. Ever since she was young, she had been brainwashed into thinking that she could only rely on herself in this world. She couldn't rely on anyone, even those old men from the Yi clan. Even the old man who taught her all kinds of ultimate skills. She could not be relied on. But to Dmo Xian, she wanted to rely on him. Stop, stop, stop. Old Man Song helplessly shook his head. This old man is worried about you. I don't want to get dog food from you. The word dog food, Old Man Song had learned it from Yiqing Luo. You are still a person controlled by Pi. Don't show that kind of smile. If the people from the Dark Forces see it, all your plans will be ruined. Old Man Song reminded him. Indeed, now is not the time to show off their affection. Yiqing Luo kept the emotions in her heart as she refocused her energy on the two people in front. Pharaoh He and Butterfly Saint Technique were still talking about something. Chapter 1668. After several twists and turns, they walked for more than an hour. Pharaoh He finally stopped at an extremely secluded back mountain in the palace. Along the way, Yiqing Luo had already formed a map of the surrounding terrain in her mind. And this secluded back mountain could be said. It was really secluded. If it wasn't for the fact that she was following behind Pharaoh He, she probably wouldn't even be able to find this place. Even if she found it, she would absolutely not link the dark sacred region with this secluded back mountain. This place was actually the dark sacred region where the King of Darkness was sealed. In order to conceal the dark sacred region, the dark forces are really going all out. Old Man Song was extremely astonished. I didn't sense any profound in-chi fluctuations in the surroundings. The dark forces were able to develop their forces till now even after the King of Darkness was sealed. And to think of ways to sneak into the Nirvana realm. This is enough to prove that the dark forces are not idiots. After hearing Old Man Song's words, Yiqing Luo also understood why the dark forces wanted to use this desolate back mountain to conceal the dark sacred region. If the dark forces met with an ambush, even if the entire clan was annihilated, at least the King of Darkness was still alive. As long as the King of Darkness was still alive, once the seal was released, their dark forces would be able to step into development once again, stepping into the peak. You also know that they're not idiots, so you better be careful. If the dark forces find out, I won't be able to save you. Hearing Yiqing Luo's tone, it was still that relaxed. Old Man Song sighed helplessly. Only this lass could maintain her composure the closer they were to danger. Ahi, as a saint technique, I don't have the right to learn the secret arts, so I can only send you here. Butterfly Saint Technique stopped in her tracks as she smiled at Pharaoh He. Pharaoh He grabbed Butterfly Saint Technique's little hand as he smiled. As long as Adai wants, I can teach you anything. The rules set by his lordship can't be broken. The Butterfly Saint Law patted the back of his hand coquettishly, winked, and said angrily, "All right, hurry up and lead that little slut in. I can't wait to see that little slut become food for the Lord." Pharaoh He took advantage of Butterfly Saint Technique's words again. At the same time, he hinted at the Butterfly Saint Technique ambiguously. He walked towards Yiqing Luo and clasped her shoulders. Yiqing Luo was in pain, but she forcefully endured the intense pain. Pharaoh He dragged him toward the deserted back mountain. As she stepped into the rear mountain, Yiqing Luo clearly felt a cooling sensation brushing past her cheeks and body. Yiqing Luo acutely discovered that when Pharaoh He walked up the rear mountain, his fingers had already formed a hand seal. This is the barrier? Yes, this kind of barrier is different from the traditional barriers that you normally encounter. Old Man Song promptly explained, this is a kind of dark barrier, a reverse barrier. Reverse bounded domain? What the hell is this? Barriers can be divided into several types. In other words, there is a reverse barrier set up in this back mountain. If you don't have the reverse spirit formation's secret technique, you won't be blocked like a traditional spirit formation when you step into the back mountain. Instead, the back mountain that you enter is truly just a back mountain. If you use the reverse spirit formation's secret technique to enter this back mountain, you will arrive at the real hidden place. Yiqing Luo nodded her head in understanding. Looked like in order to enter the dark sacred region, she needed to know about this reverse spirit formation's secret technique. Then, how should Xian use the profound phoenix ring to find her? Chapter 1669. She was forcefully dragged along by Pharaoh He for about 1 incense's time. Yiqing Luo felt that her shoulders were about to be torn apart. This old man was so gentle in front of the Butterfly Saint Technique, like a little wolf dog trying to please her. Facing her, he was so crude, not knowing how to be protective of the fairer sex. At least, her looks were several streets ahead of the Butterfly Saint Technique. At least, she was younger than the Butterfly Saint Technique. Why did this old man have to target her? Yiqing Luo's heart was filled with grief and indignation. Under Pharaoh He's tugging, she entered the reverse enchantment, the real hidden place. The surroundings were strangely quiet. It was so quiet that only their footsteps could be heard. The surroundings were filled with a black fog, emitting a poisonous miasma. Between the breaths, there was an extremely thick smell of blood. The bright moon in the sky hung on the horizon, faintly discernible, but it wasn't clear. Instead, it added a strange atmosphere. Yiqing Luo's gaze finally landed on the front. That was the end of a path filled with black brambles. At the end, there was a majestic palace made of black jade stones. The palace was surrounded by 12 pillars, representing the 12 constellations. And every pillar was engraved with sealing runes. The runes on the pillars were emitting a smooth jade glow, suppressing the black fog in all directions. Other than the strange black brambles, there was not a single blade of grass around. The heavens and earth were silent, as though only Yiqing Luo and Pharaoh He were the only living people in this world. Yiqing Luo looked at the surrounding 12 pillars. Then she looked at the palace in front of her. This was Dark Sacred Region, the place where the King of Darkness was sealed. When she saw this majestic palace, Pharaoh He's hand, which was pinching Yiqing Luo's shoulder, slowly slid down. The expression on his face became extremely respectful. His entire being became more solemn. He lifted his feet and walked towards the palace. Yiqing Luo followed closely behind. The two of them, one in front and one behind, followed the brambles on the ground as they walked into the palace. A thick smell of blood assaulted their senses. It was so thick that it made them nauseous. The surrounding black fog and miasma also gradually dispersed. Pharaoh Crane did not feel the atmosphere in the palace at all. His expression was solemn, and his eyes were filled with respect. With an incomparably devout heart, he walked at the front step by step. The interior of the palace was extremely spacious. The first thing he saw was a huge circular altar. Below the altar was a huge pit that occupied 2/3 of the palace. The pit was covered with a thin layer of silk cloth. No, that was not silk. Yiqing Luo narrowed her eyes as she stared intently at that silk cloth. If she wasn't wrong, it should be the thin frost formed by the 10,000-year-old ice on the 10,000-year-old ice mountain in the north of the Nirvana realm. This thin frost had lasted for tens of thousands of years. It absorbed the spiritual chi of heaven and earth and the essence of the sun and moon. It never melts all year round. Yiqing Luo had once heard that this 10,000-year-old cold ice had the ability to preserve corpses and prevent them from rotting forever. Who would have thought that the 10,000-year frost would be in the darkness sanctuary? What was covered by the thin frost? Yiqing Luo wanted to take a closer look. Suddenly, he heard a loud thud beside his ear. Pharaoh, he knelt down on the ground, facing that circular altar as he knocked his head hard onto the ground. Lass, don't be in a daze, follow suit and kneel down. Old man Song immediately reminded her in her mind. Kneel down? Make her kneel down in front of the King of Darkness? Looking at Pharaoh, he's devout. Kneeling back view. Yiqing Luo's eyes gradually turned cold. This place, there was only Pharaoh he alone. The King of Darkness was in the seal. If she were to kill Pharaoh he now, then she would ruin the King of Darkness's plan to remove the seal. Chapter 1670. Just as Yiqing Luo was thinking of a series of plans, suddenly he heard an unfamiliar voice that sounded like rustling leaves. Did you fail? Yiqing Luo felt a chill down her spine. This voice was just 3 simple words, but it made Yiqing Luo feel a terrifying aura. Yiqing Luo instinctively reacted. This voice, it was the voice of the King of Darkness. Other than the King of Darkness, there was no other presence in the Dark Sacred Region. Wasn't the King of Darkness sealed? Why could he still speak? Had she guessed wrongly? How could that be the voice of the King of Darkness? Numerous thoughts filled her mind. The next moment, Pharaoh, he had already used his actions to express everything. Pharaoh, he respectfully knelt on the ground as his voice trembled. My lord, I'm sorry, it's my incompetence to let a young lass destroy the spirit assimilation array. Indeed, that voice came from the King of Darkness. The person who is sealed could still speak. The King of Darkness is a being that roams above the lower realm and below the upper realm, not belonging to the 4 realms. Even if the King of Darkness is sealed, the consciousness of the King of Darkness still exists. Old Man Song's tone was extremely solemn and solemn. Lass, the power of the King of Darkness is far beyond your imagination. Even if the consciousness of the King of Darkness can't stay awake for too long, but to deal with you, it's more than enough. Yiqing Luo was stunned. In the darkness, there seemed to be a pair of icy cold eyes staring at her without blinking. A chill spread from her feet all the way to the top of her head. Her entire body seemed to have been frozen into an ice cube. She congealed her senses and tried her best to maintain her state of being under control. My lord, the reason for my failure is because of Yiqing Luo that... Pharaoh, he anxiously wanted to say that there might be someone from the lower realm behind Yiqing Luo, helping her. But before he could finish his words, he was sent flying by a powerful force, crashing heavily onto the stone wall of the palace. With a dong, he rolled down from the stone wall. Pharaoh, he clutched his chest as he spat out a mouthful of blood. A failure is a failure. Don't try to find excuses for your failure. A cold and sinister voice rang out, carrying with it an obvious killing intent. Spare me, Lord. Spare me. I know I was wrong. I won't fail again. Pharaoh Crane's plea did not arouse the slightest bit of sympathy from the King of Darkness. That powerful force came wave after wave. It continuously swept up Pharaoh Crane's body. He was flung around in all directions. Under the punishment of the King of Darkness, several of Pharaoh's bones were broken and blood was flowing out of his mouth. After an unknown period of time, perhaps the King of Darkness was tired. Perhaps it was because he saw Pharaoh Crane lying on the ground on his last breath. He only needed one more strike to take Pharaoh Crane's life. The majestic aura that lingered in the surroundings suddenly dissipated. Yiqing Luo remained standing at the same spot, her body tensed up, totally unaffected by this imposing manner. The target was the King of Darkness. Pharaoh Crane was riddled with scars from the fall. He didn't dare to order Yiqing Luo to bear it for him. Yiqing Luo didn't hear old man Song's reminder. Pharaoh, he had used a secret art to control her. Chapter 1671. Pharaoh Crane's entire body was filled with an excruciating pain. His body felt as though it was being cut by numerous saw teeth. His face was pale as the pain continued to stimulate his consciousness. But he didn't dare to dodge or resist at all. Useless trash. What's the use of this king keeping a bunch of trash like you? King of Darkness's voice was hoarse as it was filled with a terrifying eeriness. Pharaoh Crane laid on the ground as he panted heavily. His face was filled with bloodstains. His four limbs had lost the ability to move under King of Darkness's violent attacks. But when he heard King of Darkness's voice, Pharaoh Crane forced himself to hold on as he slowly shifted his body into a kneeling position. His voice was trembling as he opened his mouth in terror. Overlord, Overlord, please forgive me, although I failed in the mission of the spirit assimilation array, but I brought Yiqing Luo back. Saying that, he raised his head with difficulty as he looked at Yiqing Luo, who was standing stiffly by the side, not moving at all. For a long time, King of Darkness didn't say a word. It was just that the chill in the surroundings continued to spread. Even if it was Yiqing Luo, her skin had already started to break out with goosebumps under this chill. Finally, King of Darkness's voice rang. Yiqing Luo, that vessel. Yes, it's the Divine Phoenix Profound Heart Jade's vessel. Pharaoh Crane immediately responded. As long as there's profound chi nurtured by the vessel, I can also speed up my lord's unsealing speed. Divine Phoenix Profound Heart Jade? Vessel? When Yiqing Luo heard Pharaoh Crane's words, her heart thumped extremely quickly. Could it be her heaven-defying Profound Heart Jade? What kind of Divine Phoenix Profound Heart Jade was it? And was this Profound Heart Jade's vessel? Using her own body to nurture this Divine Phoenix Profound Heart Jade's vessel? Why didn't she understand the meaning behind Pharaoh Crane's words? You bunch of trash do have some use. King of Darkness sneered softly. Yiqing Luo suddenly felt that there was a pair of icy cold, terrifying gaze falling onto her. She was unable to sense the exact direction of that gaze. Or perhaps she felt that there were people staring at her from all directions. That gaze was glued onto her. It made her have a nauseous impulse. Yiqing Luo knew. The King of Darkness was sizing her up. She couldn't move, her heart couldn't beat fast, and her breathing couldn't be rushed. The King of Darkness was not Pharaoh Crane. Any small problem could expose the fact that she was not being controlled by Tao Wu. What are you waiting for? Bring the container over to this king. Could it be that you want this king to do it himself? As soon as the King of Darkness's cold voice rang out, a loud sound rang out. Pharaoh He, who was kneeling on the ground, was once again sent flying backward. Pharaoh Crane rolled a few times on the ground. Enduring the intense pain, he stumbled and crawled towards Yi Qing Luo's direction. What are you waiting for? Go over to his lordship's side. Pharaoh, he leaned close to Yi Qing Luo as he commanded in a low voice. Yi Qing Luo's body stiffened as she lifted her feet and walked towards that circular altar. Pharaoh Crane took the opportunity to chant a secret technique and performed a simple healing and pain relief on himself before catching up. The closer they got to the altar, the thicker the stench of blood permeated Yi Qing Luo's nose. The smell of blood. The smell was even more pungent and unpleasant than when she was in the flame lair and the ground was littered with corpses. Chapter 1672. My lord, the last time I obtained the Divine Phoenix Profound Heart Jade, I could only use it to sense the location of the vast water divine weapon. This time, with this vessel, I will definitely be able to maximize the effects of the Divine Phoenix Profound Heart Jade. Pharaoh Crane cautiously approached the altar, not forgetting to flatter it in a low voice. Have you found the whereabouts of the other azure water divine weapons? The King of Darkness scoffed. Pharaoh, his face turned pale, and cold sweat broke out on his forehead. How could he have forgotten? Even though he had obtained the Divine Phoenix Profound Heart Jade, the Azure Dew Ring was still taken away by Yi Qing Luo in the end. If it wasn't for his lord having foresight and letting him use a secret technique first to tamper with the Profound Heart Jade, he wouldn't have been able to do so. I'm afraid they totally had no idea how to deal with Yi Qing Luo. The dark forces were losing again and again. All of them had fallen onto Yi Qing Luo. He was still mentioning the vast water divine artifact. Wasn't that courting death? Pharaoh, his body trembled, and his voice trembled as he said, "And my lord, don't worry. After this subordinate transmits the mystical energy within the vessel to my lord, I will immediately send the people of the Crane faction to search for the whereabouts of the other azure water divine weapons." If you're going to search for the whereabouts of the divine artifact, how is this vessel going to nurture the profound energy needed to break my seal? The King of Darkness sneered. Pharaoh Crane was drenched in cold sweat. Bean-sized beads of sweat dripped from his forehead. His body trembled in fear. Their conversation made Yi Qing Luo even more puzzled. Was it her profound heart jade, or the radar that was searching for the azure water divine weapon? She suddenly remembered that last time, in the tomb of the Ling King, the people from the Dark Forces had used her profound heart jade to open the barrier of the azure water ring. Her profound heart jade. Did it have any special connection to the azure water divine artifact? She remembered that the azure water ring seemed to be calling out to her at that time. It was as if the azure water ring was originally a divine tool that belonged to her. Why was the King of Darkness collecting the azure water divine weapon? Moreover, it seemed like he was determined to get it. To the Dark Forces, the azure water divine artifact. What kind of crucial role did it play? Cough, cough, little girl. What you should be worried about right now isn't the matter of the vast water divine artifact. Old Man Song reminded her helplessly. If your profound energy is completely sucked out by Pharaoh he and transferred to the seal of the sacred region, you will lose all your profound energy and become a cripple. Yi Qing Luo laughed secretly in her heart. Did you think that I would give Pharaoh he this chance? Are you going to use force? Old Man Song hurriedly tried to dissuade him. This is the territory of the Dark Forces. If the King of Darkness knows that your profound heart jade isn't contaminated by the profound In Chi, you won't be able to leave the Darkness Sanctuary with your strength. The King of Darkness won't be able to remain conscious for long. Furthermore, he used up all his energy to punish Pharaoh he. How much energy does he have left? Yi Qing Luo asked calmly. She noticed. The King of Darkness was determined to kill Pharaoh he. However, when Pharaoh he said that she, as a vessel, should be transferred to the King of Darkness, she felt a chill run down her spine. The King of Darkness' killing intent had clearly weakened. The King of Darkness needed power. Even if it was sealed, he still needed power. Before entering the Darkness Sanctuary, the Butterfly Saint technique had mentioned that the King of Darkness would awaken for a short period of time. Short period of time. These two words meant that the time that the King of Darkness would be awake for wasn't considered long. Or rather, the reason why he could obtain a short period of consciousness. Chapter 1673, which meant, even if Yi Qing Luo revealed that she wasn't contaminated, the King of Darkness couldn't do anything to her. Old Man Song was stunned as he burst out laughing. What a good lass, Luo. Your thoughts are so meticulous. I finally understand the reason why you insist on following Pharaoh he into the dark sacred region. This lass, she would never do anything that she wasn't sure of, even if she was in danger. She had already planned all her escape routes. She was indeed the owner of the Azure Dew bracelet. Just as Yi Qing Luo and Old Man Song were conversing, she and Pharaoh he were already standing on the altar. Pharaoh he looked at the stiff young lady who was standing in the middle of the altar. A sinister glint flashed past his eyes. If it wasn't for the fact that this young lady was the divine phoenix, profound Jade's vessel, he would definitely strangle her to death. Suppressing the hatred and anger towards Yi Qing Luo, Pharaoh he walked over to her. My lord, I will start the incantation now. Pharaoh he grabbed Yi Qing Luo's wrist and pressed her against the altar wall, which was filled with complicated patterns. Suddenly, a bone-piercing chill came from his back. A disgusting, indescribable feeling of disgust and fear surged up her heart. That was the feeling of the King of Darkness. On the wall of the altar, it was the place where the King of Darkness was sealed. This was the place where the King of Darkness was sealed. Pharaoh he raised her hand, and after pressing it against the wall, he pulled her other hand and pressed it against the wall. But when he pressed down on the other hand, suddenly, she felt a sharp pain in her abdomen. Her body was like a broken kite as it flew out horizontally. He was flung out of the altar and landed on the ground. Yi Qing Luo used all her strength for this kick. That kick caused Pharaoh his internal organs to feel like they had been shattered. His throat felt sweet as he spat out a mouthful of blood. You. Pharaoh he trembled as he raised his head to look at the altar. But he discovered that Yi Qing Luo was standing by the side of the altar, looking at him with a smile, which didn't look like a smile. Pharaoh's eyes were filled with shock. You can't even speak properly. Just save some energy. Yi Qing Luo's pink lips curled upwards as she leapt down the altar. Then he stomped on Pharaoh Crane's chest. Another mouthful of blood gushed out from Pharaoh Crane's mouth. It's fine if you can't speak. Whatever you want to ask, I'll answer it for you. Yi Qing Luo gave a light smile as she lowered her body slightly, looking down at Pharaoh's face, which was filled with terror. You want to know why I attacked you, right? Pharaoh Crane's pupils constricted. The moment he got agitated, his internal organs tightened as well. It was so painful that he couldn't help but curl up and twitch. Pharaoh don't doubt your own secret arts. Yi Qing Luo's smile deepened. I don't have the ability to break free from your secret arts control. Pharaoh Crane shook his head. If it wasn't for the fact that she had broken free from his secret technique, she would have died. How could Yi Qing Luo possibly regain her consciousness? Because from the beginning to the end, I have never been controlled by you. Yi Qing Luo's fingers gently touched her chest. In my profound jade heart, I used the dark secret arts to hide the profound In Shi, just to wait for this moment. But unfortunately, your plan has failed once again. Pharaoh's pupils suddenly widened. His eyes were filled with astonishment, as though he was surprised that Yi Qing Luo knew all these. Yi Qing Luo smiled like a flower. Pharaoh's face was as white as paper. The atmosphere froze in an instant. Chapter 1674. Hearing King of Darkness's words, Yi Qing Luo turned her head and looked towards the altar, which was filled with patterns on the wall. Her pink lips rose slightly as she said in an evil and frivolous tone, "Then you have to come out from inside first." The surrounding mysterious In Shi, as well as the impending chill of a storm, suddenly deepened. King of Darkness was enraged. He was enraged. Yi Qing Luo smiled even more joyfully. Between her brows was a bright and enchanting smile. King of Darkness, don't try to threaten me. Her voice was calm, without any fluctuation of emotions. You have been sealed. Your remaining energy is probably not enough to keep me in the dark sacred region. So confident? King of Darkness laughed coldly. Yi-Ching Luo's charming eyes were filled with a sliver of arrogance. Then why don't King of Darkness give a try, to use your last bit of energy to test me? Or to stop me, to destroy your plan, to remove the seal? Silence made this treacherous atmosphere become more and more strange. King of Darkness didn't speak. Yi-Ching Luo's heart slowly calmed down. Her guess was right. King of Darkness didn't have much energy left. She had this divine phoenix profound heart jade, so King of Darkness didn't dare to make a move easily. After all, King of Darkness didn't know much about her ability. Yi-Ching Luo didn't bother about King of Darkness's silence. She turned her head back as her lips curled into a smile. Her eyes were filled with a sharp glint as she fixed her gaze on Pharaoh He, who was lying on the ground, unable to move. Pharaoh He, do you want to live on? She smiled lightly as her tone was gentle. Pharaoh He's pupils contracted as he stared furiously at Yi-Ching Luo. She smiled slightly. Your life to me is not that important. If I want to strangle you, it's much easier than strangling an ant. Pharaoh He was so angry that his heart was in pain. His entire body trembled. His internal organs were trembling as though they were being torn apart. Answer my question obediently, and I guarantee that you will be safe. Out of the dark, sacred region, Yi-Ching Luo suddenly bent down as her slender fingers suddenly clasped onto Pharaoh He's neck. Her fingers tightened. The bones of her fingers were slender and distinct. Pharaoh He's pale face instantly turned purplish-green. Pharaoh He's pupils dilated as he struggled to break free from Yi-Ching Luo's fingers. But his body was riddled with wounds, and he didn't have the strength to struggle. You don't want to die, right? Yi-Ching Luo could see the desire to live from Pharaoh He's eyes. He wanted to ask the King of Darkness for help, but he couldn't say a word. Yi-Ching Luo smiled as she loosened the strength on his neck. As her other hand landed on his face as she gently patted him, it wasn't easy to get to where you are today. How would you bear to die so easily? Don't worry. As long as you answer my questions obediently, not only will I guarantee your safety, but I will also guarantee that you will obtain the sacred butterfly technique. He mentioned the butterfly saint technique. Pharaoh He's eyes flashed with a glint. Yi-Ching Luo took a panoramic view of his emotional changes. Then she continued, think about it. If I send you out and I stay in the darkness sanctuary to fight the King of Darkness, who will benefit in the end? The glint in Pharaoh He's eyes grew brighter. If Yi-Ching Luo and the King of Darkness were to fight, the current King of Darkness might not be Yi-Ching Luo's match. If the King of Darkness was completely sealed, wouldn't the beneficiaries be the 4 great saint techniques and the 4 great pharaohs? By then, he would pretend to be under the King of Darkness's orders. He would control all the dark forces in his hands. Chapter 1675. This bottle of medicine can make the butterfly saint skill willingly to follow you. Yi-Ching Luo touched the profound phoenix ring and took out a white jade bottle. Under this treacherous light, that white jade bottle shone with a dazzling luster. Pharaoh He's gaze fell directly on the white jade bottle. He heard that Yi-Ching Luo was an alchemist. It was extremely normal for Yi-Ching Luo to be able to refine a pill that could make a lady willingly follow her. What do you want to know? Pharaoh He finally surrendered. Yi-Ching Luo's lips curled slightly. What is the divine phoenix profound heart jade? What secret is hidden in this profound heart jade of mine? This. Pharaoh He's face turned pale, as though he didn't expect Yi-Ching Luo to ask this question. Yi-Ching Luo raised her brows. Why? Not willing to say? No. Pharaoh He hurriedly opened his mouth, his eyes filled with panic. But this matter is extremely complicated. Maybe you don't understand. Yi-Ching Luo continued to raise her brows as she softly hummed a note. But it made Pharaoh He's scalp go numb. Divine Phoenix profound heart jade. It's... Pharaoh He looked towards the altar in horror, only to discover that the King of Darkness didn't move at all. Then he looked at Yi-Ching Luo's beautiful face with a light smile. He gritted his teeth and replied, Divine Phoenix Profound Heart Jade is the most noble profound heart jade in this world. There is only one of it in this world. Most noble? How much is the difference between the purple grade profound heart jade and the profound heart jade behind you? Yi Qing Luo asked again. Purple grade profound heart jade? There's no comparison at all. This is only because you people from the lower realms think that the purple grade profound heart jade is the highest grade profound heart jade. In the upper realms, there are a lot of them. But the preciousness of the Divine Phoenix Profound Heart Jade, even the strongest person in the God realm covets it. Yi Qing Luo remained silent for a moment. She had heard of the lower realms and the upper realms more than once. This Nirvana realm was the lower realm. Then the upper realms. Was it referring to those legendary cultivators who were brought to a higher realm? He was worried that Yi Qing Luo wouldn't understand. Pharaoh, he explained in great detail once more. The upper realm was divided into 3 realms. In the lower realm, the upper realm was called the upper 3 realms. The upper 3 realms were divided into the earth realm, heaven realm, and God realm. The God world was the strongest plane of existence. Any random passerby there, if placed in the next plane, could set off a reign of terror and break the balance of the heavenly Tao. And the profound heart jade that even the strongest people in the God world coveted. It was clear how precious the Divine Phoenix Profound Heart Jade was. After Yi Qing Luo heard all these, her heart was filled with astonishment. Her profound heart jade was actually so precious? It was no wonder that the King of Darkness had thought of all sorts of ways to dig away her profound heart jade. Then, what do you mean by vessel? Yi Qing Luo didn't forget how the King of Darkness addressed her. Pharaoh Crane was no longer as bashful as before and answered straightforwardly. Not everyone can control the Divine Phoenix Profound Heart Jade. Once an ordinary profound heart jade is dug out, a profound practitioner can absorb its profound energy. But the Divine Phoenix Heart Jade was different. When we obtain the Divine Phoenix Profound Heart Jade, we can't even unleash 1% of its power. And you are the Divine Phoenix Profound Heart Jade's vessel, the energy absorber. Only your body can nurture the Divine Phoenix Profound Heart Jade, and from there, produce an endless supply of profound energy. It was indeed like this. Chapter 1676. Since transmigrating till now, Yi Qing Luo had a question in her heart. But this question, the people from the Yi family would definitely not give her an answer. As the young matriarch of Three Springs sect, she had an enviable, profound jade heart. Why was it that she was trash without any profound chi? And after she transmigrated to this continent, she used the Dragon God Cauldron to refine the marrow cleansing pill, which changed this body's physique. Then, if her profound jade heart was the Divine Phoenix Profound Jade Heart, why couldn't her original body cultivate? Then how could it give birth to an endless stream of profound chi? Yi Qing Luo. You can rest assured, although the Divine Phoenix Profound Jade Heart is something everyone in the upper realm wants, but other than you, no one else can bring out the effect of the Divine Phoenix Profound Jade Heart. Seeing that Yi Qing Luo didn't speak, Pharaoh he thought that she was worried that her Divine Phoenix Profound Jade Heart will be discovered by the people from the upper realm. And your current strength is not enough to bring out the maximum power of the Divine Phoenix Profound Jade Heart. The people from the upper realm will not find out about the birth of the Divine Phoenix Profound Jade Heart. Then how did you know? Yi Qing Luo smiled faintly. The ridiculousness of the cold glare made Pharaoh he tremble. This is what his lordship said. We are only following orders. Pharaoh he was so scared that his face turned pale as he hurriedly replied. King of Darkness? Yi Qing Luo narrowed her eyes and glanced at the seal on the altar. A trace of suspicion flashed past her eyes, but she didn't continue to investigate. Instead, her lips curled as she looked at Pharaoh he with a light smile. What do you want to use my profound jade heart to collect the azure water divine weapon for? Pharaoh he's pupils contracted continuously. For a long time, he couldn't open his mouth to answer. Obviously, Yi Qing Luo's question touched the scope of his resistance. But the more Pharaoh, he refused to answer the question. The more Yi Qing Luo wanted to know. What was the use of the Azure Water Divine weapon to the Dark Forces? Pharaoh, he cared so much about the Azure Water Divine weapon. What secret was the Azure Water Divine weapon hiding? Yi Qing Luo's fingertips drew out a sharp dagger from the fan handle. She bent down and placed the cold dagger on Pharaoh He's face. She smiled and said in a gentle tone, "Pharaoh Crane, I'm not a very patient person. If you insist on wasting your time here, my dagger will not have eyes." Pharaoh He's face turned even paler. He tensed his body, tried to avoid the dagger in Yi Qing Luo's hand. But when he moved, the sharp blade pierced into the skin on his face. A streak of blood oozed out from his face. A piercing pain caused Pharaoh He's hair to stand on end. He knew that Yi Qing Luo wasn't joking. If he continued to hesitate, the next place that Yi Qing Luo's dagger would slash open would be his neck. Pharaoh Crane's entire body was trembling. It was unknown whether it was because of anger or fear. It was only at the last moment when Yi Qing Luo impatiently moved her dagger. He gritted his teeth and squeezed each word out from between his teeth. The Azure Water Divine weapon is the highest position in the upper realms. God Realm's Lord God Emperor's personal accessory 10,000 years ago and is tainted with Lord God Emperor's power. Rumors say that Lord God Emperor passed away 10,000 years ago and was buried in the God Emperor's tomb. And the Azure Water Divine weapon is the guide to find the God Emperor's tomb. Speaking of this, Pharaoh He's voice paused for a moment. Yi Qing Luo's eyes flashed. What motive does the Dark Forces have to find the God Emperor's tomb? Chapter 1677. You want to taste bitterness again? Yi Qing Luo looked at Pharaoh He with a smile that didn't look like a smile. He couldn't help but think to himself, could this old man be a masochist? Every time he answered a question, he had to be coy and not answer. Then, he waited for her to suffer all kinds of horrible abuse before he pretended to answer her with much difficulty. Actually, he must be secretly pleased, right? He actually liked her sadistic behavior, didn't he? This thought made Yi Qing Luo shiver uncontrollably. Suddenly, he could not look at Pharaoh Crane in the eye. Pharaoh he didn't know what Yi Qing Luo was thinking about, but when he heard Yi Qing Luo's extremely calm question, he lowered his head and replied in a trembling voice, "Find the God Emperor's tomb, awaken the God Emperor's emperor, and obtain the God Emperor's inheritance." The inheritance of the Divine Emperor? Hearing these 4 words, Yi Qing Luo's heart trembled. The Dark Forces actually wanted to obtain the Divine Emperor's inheritance? The Dark Forces were so ambitious. The power inherited by the ruler of the highest plane was enough to shake both the upper and lower worlds, and even beyond the 2 worlds. The Dark Forces did not only want to dominate the Nirvana realm. He even wanted to rule the upper realm. It was no wonder that Pharaoh Crane would reveal an expression of disbelief at her question. Looking at Pharaoh Crane's trembling body, Yi Zichen could not help but sigh. Yi Qing Luo's squinted eyes slowly surfaced a meaningful arc. Then, her pink lips curled into a smile. She sheathed the dagger and smiled sweetly. One last question. It was the last question. Pharaoh Crane was overjoyed. He really didn't want to answer Yi Qing Luo's questions anymore. All of these questions made him break out in cold sweat. If Yi Qing Luo asked a few more questions, I'm afraid I won't be able to hold on for long. How do I completely seal the King of Darkness? Yi Qing Luo fixed her eyes on Pharaoh He's eyes as she asked with a light smile, word by word. The joy on Pharaoh He's face stiffened. His pupils dilated as he looked at Yi Qing Luo in disbelief. This question was within his expectations, but it was also unexpected. The King of Darkness is your master. I can understand why you don't dare to completely seal him. Yi Qing Luo had a comforting expression as she patted Pharaoh He's shoulder, but I'm different. My motive for coming here is to seal the King of Darkness. You, just kill me. Just kill me. Pharaoh Crane's face was ashen. I said you're silly. You're really silly. Yi Qing Luo rolled her eyes, curled her fingers, and knocked hard on Pharaoh Crane's head. The will to die in Pharaoh He's eyes was genuine. This question had clearly touched Pharaoh Crane's bottom line. If he forcefully interrogated him, he definitely wouldn't be able to get anything out of him. Yiqing Luo half squatted down as she leaned close to Pharaoh He's ear and laughed lightly. Haven't I said it before? I will fight to the death with the King of Darkness, and you will be the one who benefits in the end. Isn't that a win-win situation? In other words, this is the way to seal the King of Darkness. Tell her. She had completely sealed the King of Darkness. As for Pharaoh He, after leaving the Sanctuary of Darkness, he became the leader of the dark forces. This was a blatant temptation. Pharaoh Crane was silent. Yiqing Luo picked up the white jade bottle and shook it in front of his eyes. Her eyes squinted slightly as traces of craftiness swirled around. Of course, if you insist on protecting the King of Darkness's secret and wholeheartedly die, I can fulfill your wish. Coercion and temptation, using both methods at the same time. Pharaoh He finally compromised. He clenched his fists tightly, as he had no strength to resist and could only obey. Chapter 1678. Runes on the Wall. Yiqing Luo straightened her body as she looked towards the altar. That wall, which was filled with complicated patterns, was emitting a dense, cold aura. Earlier, when Pharaoh He had pinned her on that wall, Yiqing Luo could obviously feel the touch of the King of Darkness who was sealed behind the wall. That wall. It was indeed the place where the King of Darkness was sealed. Pharaoh He, after I seal the King of Darkness completely, I will not forget about your benefits. Yiqing Luo turned her head as she revealed a radiant smile. Following that, she turned around, and with a leap, she leapt onto the altar and headed straight towards that wall, which was filled with runes. Her slender figure, under the dim and treacherous light, showed her oppressive aura. Pharaoh He laid on the ground as a sharp glint flashed past his eyes. Yiqing Luo's back was facing him, so he couldn't see her expression, but he could guess. Yiqing Luo must be extremely delighted. Then let's be delighted. Let's see who can laugh till the end. Yiqing Luo's footsteps were light, as though she was extremely happy. She squinted her eyes as an undetectable glint flashed past her eyes. She swept a glance at the surroundings. The circular altar was extremely spacious. In front of the seal array on the rune wall, a few burning lamps were placed. A palm-sized oil lamp was burning with a weak flame. The runes on the wall shone even more strangely. Could the King of Darkness have exhausted his energy and been sealed again? Yiqing Luo muttered softly as she stared at the rune array. Following that, she turned her head as her eyes were filled with joy. Pharaoh He, what should I do to destroy this seal array? Use your divine phoenix, profound Jade Heart's energy, to unleash your profound energy to the maximum and destroy the seal array along with the altar. Pharaoh He replied extremely quickly this time, without any hesitation. Yiqing Luo nodded her head in understanding. Following that, she walked straight towards the rune seal array. She shut her eyes as she activated the profound Jade Heart's energy. A powerful and terrifying profound energy fluctuation started from her feet as it spread outwards. The profound Jade Heart's energy was completely unleashed. Yiqing Luo opened her eyes. An enchanting red glow flashed past her eyes. She raised her palm and filled it with dark force. Slowly, that palm descended. Pharaoh Crane looked at Yiqing Luo's actions nervously. His sinister eyes were filled with ecstasy. Because of his excitement, his severely injured body was thrown to the back of his mind. When this palm landed, as long as this palm strike landed, Yiqing Luo was completely finished. She would completely become a tool for the dark forces to generate qi. Swish, swish, swish. Just as Pharaoh Crane was filled with excitement, a few inexplicable voices could be heard in the air. On the altar, the aura of the woman who was releasing dense xian qi had suddenly decreased. His palms were filled with dark force and turned into a hurricane. The hurricane swept up the oil lamps in front of the ceiling array in an instant. The weak burning light was instantly extinguished. The moment the lights were turned on, Pharaoh's face instantly turned pale. He staggered back a few steps. He wasn't able to stand properly as he fell heavily onto the ground. His face was filled with astonishment as he looked in disbelief at the young lady who had retracted her palm wind. His heart instantly sank to the bottom. Chapter 1679. Pharaoh, he was so infuriated that he was trembling. His throat was filled with a fishy taste as he spat out a mouthful of blood. If you said that Yiqing Luo was really innocent and accidentally extinguished those few oil lamps, he wouldn't believe it even if he was beaten to death. He had underestimated this wretched lass's ability, underestimated this wretched lass's intelligence. Yiqing Luo seemed as though she didn't see Pharaoh. He spitting out blood as she innocently blinked her eyes. Why not? I try again. This time, I will definitely be able to destroy the altar and the ceiling array. Saying that, she had a sweet smile on her face as she flipped her palms. The glower flame fan suddenly opened up. The young lady's slender figure was like a rose blooming in the dark night. The red feather fan in her hands created numerous whirlwinds of sharp blades. In a few breaths' time, the sharp blade shot out. In front of the ceiling formation, the few remaining oil lamps were sliced into several pieces with a crackling sound. The lights stopped burning. There was no longer any oil lamp burning. Yiqing Luo sighed with a helpless look. Why is my profound qi becoming more and more disobedient? I have to try again, try again. Her words had yet to finish. An angry and irritated voice suddenly rang out. Vessel, stop it at once. Immediately following that rune wall shot out an extremely chilly, imposing manner, directly striking towards Yiqing Luo's face. Yiqing Luo's fingertips flicked. The glower flame fan easily split apart that aura. Following that, her figure speedily retreated a few steps. Her lips curled upwards as she smiled sweetly. Unable to hold it in so quickly, a raging chilly aura swept across the entire dark, sacred region. It indicated the King of Darkness's raging emotions. Yiqing Luo's smile grew as she retreated to Pharaoh. He sighed, without a single trace of fear on her face. How did you know? How did you know? Pharaoh, he was completely in a panic. He sat on the ground helplessly as he looked at Yiqing Luo with a face full of terror. He couldn't believe that Yiqing Luo actually knew about his and his lord's plan, knew that the most important thing in his lord's altar was those few spirit lamps, which looked like oil lamps. Do you think that I will believe your nonsense? Yiqing Luo chuckled as she looked at Pharaoh, as though she was looking at a fool. Impossible. Clearly you. Pharaoh, he could not figure out which step had gone wrong. The questions you answered were half true and half false. I have my own ways to differentiate. Yiqing Luo's lips curled upwards. She was obviously smiling, but it looked extremely horrifying. Impossible. Impossible. Pharaoh Crane shook his head. The line of defense in his heart had completely collapsed. From the moment you answered the second question, I started to suspect you. It was impossible for the King of Darkness to fall into a deep slumber because of the seal. Pharaoh Crane's fearful expression, as well as the fact that he was too frightened to answer every single question she asked, only to be able to answer fluently in the end. It made Yiqing Luo develop suspicions towards him. He was afraid that the King of Darkness wasn't asleep at all. But through the dark secret arts, Yiqing Luo and Pharaoh, he were communicating telepathically. The questions that Pharaoh Crane answered were all questions that the King of Darkness had agreed to. The King of Darkness had been sealed for 10,000 years, so if it wasn't through you guys, how would he know about the matters in the outside world? How did the King of Darkness find out that I have the Divine Phoenix profound heart jade? Pharaoh, why don't you save your effort to play your little tricks in front of me? Yiqing Luo looked at the fearful Pharaoh, with interest. Her words weren't just for Pharaoh to hear. But, Chapter 1680. Yiqing Luo really wanted to roast what was in Pharaoh Crane's brain. Not long ago, the few of them and Shanglan were discussing. Was there someone from the lower realm behind her? Pharaoh, quickly threw this suspicion to the back of his mind. The King of Darkness wanted to use Pharaoh Crane's mouth to get her to help him break the seal. She didn't even think that inside her azure dew bracelet lived an old man who knew the heavens above and the earth below. How could Old Man Song not know how to break and destroy the Saint Realm seal? When Pharaoh he told her to release all the power of the divine phoenix profound heart jade and destroy the altar, Old Man Song had already spoken out to stop her. Of course, even if Old Man Song didn't say anything to stop him, it was impossible for her to be obedient. She was not stupid. If he destroyed the altar, wouldn't he be helping the King of Darkness remove his seal? It was precisely because of Pharaoh he's words. This made Yi-Ching Luo raise her guard completely. From this, she concluded that the King of Darkness did not fall into a deep slumber. Instead, he wanted to use her divine phoenix profound heart jade to forcefully break the seal, even though her current strength was not enough to completely remove the Saint Realm seal. But at the very least, it could speed up the process of removing the King of Darkness seal. In Old Man Song's words, which was to say, as long as Yi-Ching Luo really followed Pharaoh he's method and destroyed the altar, it was equivalent to Yi-Ching Luo destroying the spirit assimilation array in the blazing cavern, all in vain. From Old Man Song's mouth, Yi-Ching Luo found out that the oil lamps in front of the ceiling array was the key to the King of Darkness's temporary awakening. If she directly stepped forward and wanted to forcibly extinguish those burning lamps, she would have already been killed. The King of Darkness would never give her the chance to do so. The King of Darkness wanted to use her. Then she decided to beat him at his own game and pretended to believe Pharaoh he's words. She approached the lamps and extinguished them. Those oil lamps were known as soul lamps. As the name suggested, it was a lamp that gathered souls. As the lamp burned, the soul would not be extinguished. It was these few soul lamps that allowed the King of Darkness to have the ability to devour souls, even when he was sealed in the Saint Domain. Destroyed the soul lamp. The soul was interrupted. The source of the King of Darkness power would also be cut off. Thinking of this, Yi-Ching Luo's pink lips curved upwards as the ridicule in her eyes deepened. It was indeed the right choice for her to infiltrate the dark forces and enter the darkness sanctuary. As long as the King of Darkness was heavily injured, no matter how powerful the dark forces were, they would not be able to do anything big for a long time. And during this period of time, it was enough for her to grow to the point where she could rival the King of Darkness. She, Yi-Ching Luo, had this confidence. "You slut! How dare! How dare!" Pharaoh, he looked at the beautiful face in front of him, and his eyes widened in horror. He and his lord had fallen into this bitch's trap. The soul lamp had been destroyed. How could the lord wake up? Pharaoh, he wanted to gather his mental power and cast a hex. But he had just condensed his mental energy. A tingling sensation quickly spread from the center of his head. His entire head felt like it was being torn apart. Pharaoh Crane fell to the ground in pain. He raised his head and smashed it against the ground. This kind of pain made it impossible for him to concentrate. Chapter 1681. Pharaoh, his gaze fell onto the white jade bottle. His expression turned steely green as he roared furiously. "What have you done to me? You, how dare you?" Wasn't the white jade bottle in Yi-Ching Luo's hands the one which she used to bluff Pharaoh he, saying that it would make the butterfly saint technique follow him willingly? It was targeted at him, a poison which restrained his concentration. Pharaoh, he was furious and annoyed, but most of it was fear and astonishment. The young lady in front of him, she was just 15 years old, but she had such a scheming mind. Her thoughts were meticulous and every step was calculated. Even for an old man like him who had lived for more than half of his life, fighting openly and covertly all the way to his current position, he was totally unable to see through what she was thinking. If, right from the start, he had sincerely cooperated with Yi-Ching Luo, would the end be different? This young lady, perhaps she really had the ability to destroy the dark forces. Only, there were no ifs. Yi-Ching Luo would not give him a chance to regret. She smiled as she twisted open the white jade bottle's cap. The white medicinal powder was sprinkled onto Pharaoh's body. When a medicinal powder came into contact with Pharaoh's body, Pharaoh, he only felt that his entire body was filled with the same kind of piercing pain earlier. Densely, it attacked his entire body. He howled in pain. His body twisted into an extremely strange arc on the ground. Yiqing Luo's expression didn't change as she flicked her finger and the white jade bottle landed on the ground. She calmly raised her eyes and looked toward the altar, losing the illumination of the soul lamp. The entire dark sacred region only had one hanging luminous pearl. The light was extremely weak, as the surrounding sinister, cold wind blew. With a thick stench of blood, it filled the air. It made the atmosphere of the dark sacred region even more sinister. A gust of chilly wind blew past in waves. Yiqing Luo remained unmoved. Instead, it passed by the extremely twisted and stiff corpse on the ground due to the pain, and headed straight towards the direction of the silk cloth, which was covered with a thin layer of frost for thousands of years. The air was filled with the stench of blood once again. King of Darkness's hoarse roar rang beside her ears. "Vessel, stop! Stop right there for this king!" A surge of energy came from all directions. It enveloped Yiqing Luo's body in that surge of energy. A cold and gloomy aura. This made Yiqing Luo's brows crease slightly. "Don't touch me." These three peaceful words came out from Yiqing Luo's mouth. Beneath her feet, the profound qi fluctuated and rolled up streams of energy. Countless streams of air revolved around the sole of her feet, entangling together. Bang! The force from the King of Darkness collided with the airflow around Yiqing Luo's feet. The air in the entire Darkness Saint realm suddenly shook violently. At the same time, in Yiqing Luo's hand, a soul lamp which had already been extinguished appeared. When the King of Darkness saw the soul lamp in her hand, his voice became even more irritated. "Vessel, if you dare to do this, this king will make you regret it. I'll make you regret it." His voice was already in a hysterical state. The restlessness of the King of Darkness caused the cold in the air to turn into ice. When had he ever suffered such humiliation? This vessel had repeatedly sabotaged his awakening plan and his plan to remove the seal on the Saint realm. Now, he wanted to completely destroy him. How could he tolerate this? He was the King of Darkness, the king of all living things in the world. Between heaven and earth, all living things had to respect him as the king. However, the commotion in the air was unable to disturb Yiqing Luo's emotions. Her expression was calm as she threw the soul lamp in her hand towards the thin layer of frost. An intense explosion was heard. Chapter 1682. "Ah, slut! Slut!" Furious roars filled the entire dark sacred region. The dark sacred region was in a state of turbulence. The surrounding air seemed to have been frozen by the profound yin qi at this moment. In the air, streams of profound yin qi continued to revolve and spread in all directions. Yiqing Luo's breathing started to become laborious. The King of Darkness was enraged, completely enraged. Yiqing Luo slowed down her breathing as she squinted her eyes as she gazed at the profound yin qi which was revolving around her. On the contrary, she revealed a as expected smile. The angrier the King of Darkness was, the more furious he got, which meant that her action of breaking the 10,000 years thin frost was a huge blow to the King of Darkness. Yiqing Luo's vision fell onto the 10,000 years thin frost, which was filled with tiny cracks. She took a step forward. Another spirit lamp was thrown out from her hand. Just a light toss. That palm-sized spirit lamp landed right in the middle of the thin frost. A kacha sound was heard. The 10,000 years thin frost suddenly broke apart. The deep pit, which occupied 2/3 of the dark sacred region, was completely presented in front of Yiqing Luo. That was a blood pool which emitted a thick stench of blood. What was even more horrifying was that huge blood pool was soaked with corpses. On top of each corpse floated a layer of fist-sized, transparent air bubble. At the moment when the 10,000 years thin frost broke apart, those transparent air bubbles immediately left the corpses' heads as they swarmed out. Transparent air bubbles, in a split second, enveloped the entire roof of the dark sacred region, one layer after another. It was densely packed, and just one look at it made one's hair stand on end. There were at least tens of thousands of transparent air bubbles. And at the same time, when the air bubbles left the corpses in the blood pool suddenly melted into a pool of blood. In just a short moment, the corpses in the blood pool had already disappeared, and the blood in the blood pool had obviously spread upwards. This scene made even Yi-Ching Luo's scalp go numb. She raised her head and looked at the layers of densely packed, transparent air bubbles, which were suspended above the roof as she was filled with puzzlement. Those are the souls of those profounders. Old Man Song voiced out in time to dispel Yi-Ching Luo's doubts. Soul? Are those transparent bubbles souls? These souls should be the sacrifices that the dark faction prepared for the King of Darkness. Use dark spells to extract the souls of the boys and girls. Then seal their bodies and souls in the blood pool with 10,000-year frost. You use your soul lamp to shatter the 10,000-year thin frost, and the souls of these profound practitioners escaped. As Yi-Ching Luo listened, the coldness in her eyes grew increasingly stern. The underworld organization was truly ruthless. Who would have thought that they would use such a method to store the offerings for the King of Darkness? It was too cruel. These souls, they were all sacrifices for the King of Darkness, a source of food. It was no wonder that the King of Darkness was so furious when she destroyed the 10,000-year-old thin frost. She wanted to destroy the hope of the King of Darkness awakening. He wanted to destroy the King of Darkness's hopes of breaking the seal. She wanted to seal the King of Darkness completely. Yi-Ching Luo's eyes turned cold as her figure suddenly swayed. She was already standing at the entrance of the dark, sacred region's palace. She recalled the method that Pharaoh he used to open the palace door. Stop. You stop right now. Following the hysteria of the King of Darkness, the profound yin-chi in the huge palace caused the surrounding air to turn even colder. Chapter 1683. The violent, profound yin-chi seemed to have the power to swallow the heaven and earth. Yi-Ching Luo's body was unavoidably affected by the profound yin-chi. Her expression didn't fluctuate at all. However, astonishment surged up from the bottom of his heart. The King of Darkness was very powerful, much more powerful than the Nirvana realm. Yi-Ching Luo was very clear about this. It was rumored that 10,000 years ago, the upper realm's power was used to seal the King of Darkness in the dark sacred region. That was enough to show how powerful the King of Darkness was. Even now, he who was sealed in the dark sacred region, the power that was released was not even a 10,000th of what he had at his peak. But it was this 10,000th. Yi-Ching Luo felt an extremely strong pressure, covering the sky and covering the earth. The violent, profound yin-chi kept attacking her. Yi-Ching Luo's robe kept fluttering. A strong airflow lingered around Yi-Ching Luo's body, forming into a ball shape. In her mind, Old Man Song's panicked voice rang, "Not good, lass. The King of Darkness is enraged. Quickly use teleportation to leave this place." At this moment, Old Man Song couldn't be bothered anymore. As long as Yi-Ching Luo could survive, even if the secret of the Azure Dew bracelet was known by others, it didn't matter. He absolutely could not let anything happen to Yi-Ching Luo. Yi-Ching Luo's heart trembled when she heard that. She didn't expect Old Man Song to even mention teleportation. From this, one could see how dangerous the King of Darkness's furious attack was. But she couldn't use teleportation. She couldn't escape just like that. The King of Darkness's attack seemed to be aimed at her. But in actual fact, the King of Darkness's bigger target was those 10,000 transparent soul bubbles floating above the roof. Old Man Song had explained it to her before. These souls had all been sealed into bubbles using dark spells. Once, these transparent bubbles left the dark sacred region and floated towards the place where the souls were controlled. By then, the upper realm would discover the dark spells on these souls. And once the number of these souls increased, the people from the upper realm would definitely pay attention to this matter. The dark forces were preparing to rise again and take action against the Nirvana realm. Once the news spread to the upper realm would definitely maintain the balance and lend a helping hand. She wanted to release these souls from the darkness sanctum. The King of Darkness would do everything in his power to stop him. If she escaped, it wasn't just the secret of teleportation that the King of Darkness would know. These souls would also be destroyed by the King of Darkness. These souls were the evidence of the evil deeds of the underworld organization. Yiqing Luo absolutely would not allow the King of Darkness to destroy this evidence. Her charming eyes were covered with a thin layer of coldness. Yiqing Luo concentrated. The power of her profound jade heart rose to the extreme. Then, the powerful, profound qi poured down like a rainbow. The glowing flame fan in his hand also unfurled, turning into a devilish red glow. Bang! The palace gate of the darkness sanctuary was split open by the red light. At the same time, Yiqing Luo's body, which was encircled by the profound yin qi, suddenly exploded. "Girl Luo!" Old Song's voice was hoarse as he angrily roared from within the azure dew bracelet. His heart was beating rapidly, unable to restrain itself. That girl he actually chose to take on the King of Darkness attack just to release those souls? What on earth was she doing? Old Man Song wanted to use his vision to investigate the situation outside. But no matter how he looked, it was all white in front of him. Chapter 1684. The air currents from the explosion continued to revolve, intertwining with each other. At this instance, the densely packed soul bubbles above the eaves of the palace seemed to be attracted by something as they surged towards the main door. One by one, the bubbles rushed out of the palace, flying toward the sky. These souls had no life. The reverse barrier to these souls had no effect at all. Those bubbles, one by one, surged towards the sky, disappearing outside the barrier. Damn it! Stop! Stop! King of Darkness was enraged. The entire dark sacred region was in an uproar. What a pity! A voice that seemed to be filled with helplessness and pity rang out in a quiet and serene voice. There was a hint of a smile in her clear and sweet voice. "Can't do as you wish, these souls can't stop." That voice continued. You're not dead." King of Darkness roared agitatedly, filled with disbelief. This was Yiqing Luo's voice. How could she not be dead? Even though the current him wasn't at his peak. With his current power, killing Yiqing Luo was not a problem at all. How could Yiqing Luo still be alive under his attack, which had exhausted all his remaining energy? The dark sacred region's uproar gradually calmed down. The airflow that lingered around them also gradually subsided. That explosive air currents slowly dispersed, revealing a slender figure. The young lady's green and white academy uniform was fluttering, obviously without any adornment. But looking at it now, it seemed as though it was plated with a layer of lustrous velvet. Black hair danced along with the air currents. Her slender figure stood proudly. The flame around her made her seem so noble, making one unable to have any thoughts of blasphemy. Wasn't this Yiqing Luo? She indeed didn't die. Not only did she not die, furthermore, her entire person seemed to have a metamorphosis, as though she had been reborn. In the seal, King of Darkness's mental power had been fixed on Yiqing Luo. This was not the metamorphosis of advancement. Yiqing Luo's profound grade was still stable at Sky Profound First Grade Realm. That was King of Darkness's mental power suddenly shook. Yiqing Luo's Divine Phoenix Profound Jade Heart, that smear of profound yin qi which was sealed with the dark incantation, was completely erased. How was this possible? How could Yiqing Luo possibly eliminate that trace of profound yin qi? While the King of Darkness was in disbelief, he felt a backlash attack his mind power. The King of Darkness screamed in agony. Then there was no sound. "You little girl." In his divine sense, Old Man Song swallowed his saliva and opened his mouth in a daze. Yiqing Luo's exquisite and beautiful face was filled with an eerie chill. Her enchanting eyes were fixated on the Saint Realm array formation on the altar. Her thin eyebrows slightly furrowed. What was going on? She could clearly feel the King of Darkness's gaze sizing her up. But in the next instant, suddenly, The connection between the eyes disappeared. Even the aura of the mysterious Shi had disappeared. Could it be that the King of Darkness had exhausted all of his strength and his consciousness was sealed once more? Lass, what happened just now? How did you withstand the King of Darkness attack? Why wasn't I able to see what was happening outside just now? Filled with questions, Old Man Song was so anxious that he almost wanted to stomp his feet. Just now? Yiqing Luo hesitated for a moment as she shook her head in a daze. Everything that had just happened in that instant. Chapter 1685. The moment the profound Shi condensed into a sphere, it exploded. She was preparing to use her teleportation. Even if she was seriously injured, she could at least preserve her life. But she didn't have time to recite the incantation. Suddenly, a scorching hot feeling wrapped around her heart. Immediately, she felt that her body was being burned by a raging fire. She didn't even have the time to pay attention to what was happening. When she opened her eyes, she was already standing safely in the air. Then came the King of Darkness's hysterical roar, ringing in her ears. Scorching hot feeling? Old Man Song murmured softly. Yiqing Luo heard the seriousness in his tone. You know the reason? Old Man Song was silent for a moment, deliberating for a while, then slowly opened his mouth. To you, this should be considered a good thing, but also a bad thing. Yiqing Luo was stunned. You also know this profound heart jade of yours is called the Divine Phoenix Profound Heart Jade. Old Man Song let out a long sigh. I originally didn't want to tell you the secret of this profound heart jade so quickly, but man proposes, God disposes. You still know about the Divine Phoenix Profound Heart Jade. Your current strength is unable to enter the upper realm. This profound heart jade of yours is unable to display its full potential. Yiqing Luo herself was very clear on this point. Previously, she had asked Old Man Song, what were the profound grades above the sky mystic supremacy? Old Man Song only explained a little, then let her concentrate on cultivating to reach the sky mystic stage first. It was because with her current strength, even if she knew those things that exceeded her current strength, to her, it was of no use. She might as well not know anything, then rely on her own hard work to find out everything she wanted to know. In that critical moment, just now, this Divine Phoenix Profound Heart Jade of yours saved you. Old Man Song sighed again. I activated the power of the Divine Phoenix Profound Heart Jade? Yiqing Luo was surprised then. What did you mean when you said, it's a good thing, but also a bad thing? You can activate the power of the Divine Phoenix Profound Heart Jade. It proves that your current realm has increased. Your innate talent has also increased. This will be of great help to your future profound chi cultivation. This was obviously a great benefit. However, Old Man Song's tone was extremely solemn. However, with your current strength, you may be considered as one of the best in the Nirvana realm, but compared to the upper realm, you are just an ant that can be trampled upon. You've also heard from Pharaoh He that the dark forces are not the only ones coveting your profound heart jade. Even the people of the God realm are coveting the Divine Phoenix Profound Heart Jade. If the news that the Divine Phoenix Profound Heart Jade is in the Nirvana realm spreads to the upper realm, I'm afraid you'll be in danger. Yiqing Luo slowly lowered her eyelids. Her slender hand pressed against her heart. The Profound Heart Jade emitted a gentle, profound energy, warming the center of her palm. Why did the Divine Phoenix Profound Heart Jade choose me? She murmured softly. She had countless questions in her mind. The Azure Dew bracelet was her family's heirloom. This other world also had an Azure Water Divine artifact. Not only that, but her Profound Heart Jade was the key and radar to find the Azure Water Divine artifact. The vast Water Divine artifact also had an inexplicable connection with her. All of these questions superimposed on each other. It made Yiqing Luo's heart skip a beat, then immediately beat violently. He heard the sound of her complicated feelings. Old Man Song was silent for a long time. Chapter 1686. Do you want to know? Old Man Song's voice reverberated in her mind. Yiqing Luo's eyes flickered slightly. This hesitation only lasted for a few short breaths. The luster in her eyes had already regained its calmness. Don't want to. She didn't use her consciousness to say these two words. She moved her mouth and spat out these two words clearly. She understood Old Man Song's concerns before she had the ability to contend with the people from the upper realm. Even if she knew, it would be of no use to her. On the contrary, it would affect her state of mind. It would affect the progress of her cultivation. She wanted to know those things. When she had enough ability, she would investigate everything clearly one by one. Hearing Yi Qing Luo's reply, the old man in the azure dew bracelet slowly heaved a sigh of relief. That wrinkled face was filled with gratification. This lass, she was too sensible. It was no wonder that she was chosen by the azure dew bracelet. But lass, this time you sent so many soul bubbles to the soul control center, it will definitely attract the attention of the upper realm. If the people from the upper realm pursue it to the lower realm, Old Man Song's tone revealed some worries. Yi Qing Luo's lips curled as she looked outside the palace door at the dark and treacherous atmosphere. Old Man Song, with you around, I believe that hiding the presence of the Divine Phoenix Profound Heart Jade and Azure Dew Bracelet is not a problem. Old Man Song remained silent for a while. Lass, you're really meticulous. Nothing can escape your eyes. The dark forces had racked their brains to search for a complete set of Azure Dew Divine Weapon. The Azure Dew Divine Weapon was just a divine weapon made from the leftover dregs of the Azure Dew Bracelet. But the dark forces were so obsessed with the Azure Dew Divine Weapon. What more, the Azure Dew Bracelet? In the Azure Dew Bracelet, there was not only the Dragon God Cauldron, the Purgatory Pagoda, there were all kinds of heaven-defying secret technique rewards. An Old Man Song kept reminding her not to use the secret technique rewards from the Purgatory Pagoda in front of others. This further indicated the mystery of the Azure Dew Bracelet. The Azure Dew Bracelet should be an even more heaven-defying existence than her Divine Phoenix Profound Heart Jade. But all along, other than DMO Xian, no one had discovered the existence of the Azure Dew Bracelet. Even the King of Darkness couldn't sense the Azure Dew Bracelet. It could be seen that the aura of the Azure Dew Bracelet was definitely concealed by Old Man Song using a special method. This profound heart jade of hers should also be. For the past 15 years, she had always been called trash. He had a powerful, profound jade heart, but he was trash that couldn't cultivate. All of this was to hide that her profound heart jade was the Divine Phoenix Profound Heart Jade. If he had shown great talent since he was young, he became the first unparalleled genius in the Nirvana realm. The secret of her profound heart jade might not be able to be kept for long, especially since she was the young lord of the Three Springs sect, one of the 4 major sections. This identity was already eye-catching enough. Not to mention, under the circumstances of this identity, he was also extremely talented in cultivation. She had completely exposed the fact that the Divine Phoenix Profound Heart Jade was in her possession. However, what made Yi Qing Luo curious was, in the past 15 years, who was it that had turned her into a wastrel who was unable to cultivate? Who was it that wanted to help her hide the whereabouts of the Divine Phoenix Profound Heart Jade? Looking at the entire Three Springs sect, Yi Qing Luo couldn't think of anyone who would do such a thing. Just as Yi Qing Luo was deep in thought, a slender figure suddenly appeared from somewhere in the shadows. Chapter 1687. The cold, profound yin-chi corroded Yi Qing Luo's entire body. Lass, be careful behind you. Old Man Song's anxious voice suddenly rang. Almost instinctively, Yi Qing Luo's feet moved. Her agile footwork made her figure like an afterimage. But a moment later, she had already moved to the other side. Bam! An explosion sound was heard. The ground where Yi Qing Luo was standing earlier suddenly exploded into a huge, deep pit. The surrounding profound yin-chi set off gusts of wild wind. Yi Qing Luo's slender brows were tightly knitted as she looked vigilantly at the direction where the chi came from and shouted in a deep voice, "Who's there?" There was actually someone else here? She actually didn't sense it at all. This was the dark, sacred region and only people of the level of the Holy Law and the Pharaoh could enter this place. Could it be? Someone had sensed that something had happened in the dark, sacred region and rushed over. The profound Inchi, which shrouded the area, gradually faded. Yiqing Luo could clearly see that under the profound Inchi was a tall and slender man. The man had a head of silver hair and was dressed in a black robe. His exquisite face exuded a sinister and cold aura. Traces of black Inchi were like flowing black electric currents as it wrapped around his entire body. His body was emitting a biting, cold, evil qi. She only met his gaze for a moment. Yiqing Luo instantly felt an extremely strong, cold current rushing from her feet straight up to her head. That was a kind of bone-piercing cold. This man was very dangerous compared to those Holy Law and Pharaoh whom she had met. He was several hundred times more dangerous. This man, who was he? Damn vessel, how dare you destroy this king's blood-soul curse? This king wants to devour you. That evil and cold man's eyes were filled with a dense, profound Inchi. The minute he opened his mouth, Yiqing Luo's expression could no longer maintain her original composure. What did he say? This king? He is King of Darkness? No, impossible. The King of Darkness was sealed in the sacred region's array. How could he possibly reveal his physical body? The man's lips twitched sinisterly as the profound Inchi clouded his expression. But Yiqing Luo knew that he was sneering. He was ridiculing her fear towards him. He was also laughing at her overconfident vigilance. This thought made Yiqing Luo's heart surge with thick anger and unwillingness. Little girl, don't let his mysterious Inchi affect your mind. Looking at Yiqing Luo's expression, which surfaced some anger, Old Man Song hurriedly opened his mouth and called out to Yiqing Luo. Although the wisp of profound Inchi sealed within your profound jade heart was already automatically purified when I was protecting you just now, it's still not enough. However, don't underestimate the power of this mysterious Inchi. The profound Inchi of the dark forces was obviously different from the one he had sensed in the Nirvana realm. In Nirvana realm, especially those cultivators who had made a soul exchange, making use of profound Inchi to deal with Yiqing Luo. Yiqing Luo could easily dispel those profound Inchi and wasn't affected by it all. But in the dark forces, the mystical Inchi was the purest. Especially, the black Inchi on the man in front of him was even stronger than the black Inchi he had sensed from the Wolf Saint Law. No matter how firm Yiqing Luo's willpower was, their minds were affected by the dense, mysterious Inchi. Chapter 1688. Old Man Song remained silent and didn't give a reply. He had no way to differentiate whether the man in front of him was the King of Darkness or not. He had the same question as Yiqing Luo, from the man's voice and words, as well as the sharp aura that was released from his body. This indeed looked like the King of Darkness. But the King of Darkness was sealed in the sacred region's array. The source of his power, the source of his consciousness, those blood pool souls had all been released by Yiqing Luo. The King of Darkness' remaining power would be stripped away, not to mention the removal of the seal. Most importantly, Old Man Song was the clearest about the King of Darkness power. If the man in front of him was the King of Darkness, there was no way that Yiqing Luo could evade that attack of his earlier. Very strange, very surprised. Looking at Yiqing Luo's vigilant and fearful expression, the man smiled evilly. He squinted his eyes. The profound Inchi in his eyes lingered in his eyes. Too bad. You can only be surprised in hell. The soaring profound Inchi continued to be released. That ruthless gaze was incomparably terrifying. Yiqing Luo's reaction was extremely fast. The glower flame fan suddenly opened up, and a bewitching red glow cut through the layers of profound Inchi. As though in the air, streams of air waves were produced. Two bursts of energy collided in midair. The dense energy suddenly enveloped the entire dark, sacred region's palace. The blood in the blood pool also splattered out in this intense hurricane. The ground was stained with a large patch of blood. The man's lips curled up sinisterly as the profound in-chi in his eyes grew thicker. Struggle on your deathbed. This king shall satisfy you. His words had just ended when he waved his sleeves. Following the encirclement of the profound in-chi, a palm wind mixed with the dense profound in-chi struck towards Yi-Ching Luo's direction. Yi-Ching Luo's expression changed. Such a strong aura. Such dense profound in-chi. This man was indeed ruthless. Each strike was fatal. Those two irresistible forces were colliding with each other. Suddenly, the profound in-chi's palm wind covered the sky and earth as it pressured downwards. The glower flame fan's red glow was instantly covered by the profound in-chi. Immediately following that, it surged towards Yi-Ching Luo. Yi-Ching Luo's eyes widened as the profound chi within her body continued to expand. She gripped the devouring flame fan tightly, her profound chi swirling around the devouring flame fan, emitting an extremely dazzling red light. Then, she flipped her wrist. The gourd flame fan raised two red flying dragons. It bared its fangs and brandished its claws to fight against the mysterious in-chi. At the same time, Yi-Ching Luo's figure suddenly made a turn. Boom, boom, boom. Bang. Kacha. With a few loud noises. The two huge red dragons were mercilessly devoured by the dense, mysterious in-chi. Shortly after, the mysterious in-chi smashed onto the ground with a loud bang. The powerful aura caused the surrounding air to be tainted with black in-chi. Yi-Ching Luo exerted all her energy and barely managed to maintain her balance, not to be sent flying by that powerful palm chi. That man, it was too powerful. When a wind from his palm burst out, Yi-Ching Luo had never thought of going head-to-head with him. Those two flying dragons were condensed from the combination of profound chi and the glower flame fan's energy. It was just a fight for a chance for herself to avoid that palm wind. She was not an idiot. Naturally, she could tell. The man's palm contained a dense energy. If this palm really landed on her body, she would definitely die. She would probably lose her life. Yi-Ching Luo steadied herself, and the blood from the blood pool on the ground had soaked her feet. Chapter 1689. The man in front of her was cold and dignified. A pair of eyes that were filled with profound in-chi revealed an evil smile. Yes, this king is the king of darkness, the king who rules over all living things. His smile was obviously filled with joy, but a sinister aura seeped out from his bones. Vessel, you have no way to resist. Obediently be devoured by this king. The king of darkness's eyes suddenly turned cold as his murderous intent was revealed. Yi-Ching Luo took half a step back as her heart tightened. Obediently obey? These words didn't exist in her dictionary. To make her obey the king of darkness, to become his food. She only wanted to be afraid of the king of darkness. Dream on. Suddenly, Yi-Ching Luo's eyes flashed as she pretended to laugh indifferently. You who have been sealed, even if you awaken, it will only be for a short period of time. Do you think I will be afraid of you? Devouring you is enough. The king of darkness's gloomy eyes were filled with murderous intent. When his words fell, his face instantly turned steely green. Apparently, he realized that he had been tricked by Yi-Ching Luo. Yi-Ching Luo closed the glower flame fan and placed it on her pink lips as she laughed lightly. Indeed, after being sealed for 10,000 years, your brain has not been used for so long that it has become rusty. The contempt and ridicule in her eyes was obvious. As long as she was sure that the king of darkness's physical body was not because of the removal of the seal, she could rest assured. Moreover, she could confirm that the king of darkness's physical body had a time limit. As long as she could hang on for this period of time, she would exhaust all of the king of darkness's energy. The king of darkness would definitely fall into a deep slumber because of the sacred region's seal. I know. Suddenly, old man Song's voice rang in her mind. I know the reason why the king of darkness's physical body appeared. Yi-Ching Luo stared at the king of darkness alertly, in case he suddenly made a move. She was distracted as she listened to old man Song's words. The King of Darkness wants to remove the sacred region seal and descend once again to fulfill his ambition from 10,000 years ago. In order to break the seal, he has already spent a great deal of effort. Recently, the dark forces have been making a lot of movements. Moreover, they're taking the risk of being discovered by the various factions in the Nirvana realm to set up a soul assimilation array in the Flame Lair to plunder the souls of the students of the various academies. It can be seen that the King of Darkness has already reached the final stage of breaking the seal. Perhaps, in the next few years, the seal of the sanctuary will be completely undone. Hearing Old Man Song's analysis, Yiqing Luo nodded her head solemnly. That was her guess as well. When the dark forces took action, Yiqing Luo had this feeling. But, girl, you destroyed the soul assimilating array. Old Man Song's voice was filled with deep worry. He even let go of the blood soul curse that he had gathered for at least 100 years. He completely destroyed all of his opportunities to break the seal. He also wasted 10,000 years of hard work in one day. The King of Darkness was a very ambitious person. His ambition led to him being suppressed by the people of the upper realm and sealed in the dark holy region 10,000 years ago. However, a seal might not be able to seal a person's ambition. The King of Darkness's ambition was still stirring. After spending 10,000 years, he tried all ways and means to break the sacred region seal. Just a few more steps, but it was completely destroyed by Yiqing Luo. Under the rage of the King of Darkness, his mental energy broke through the seal and revealed his physical body, intending to skin the person who destroyed his hard work alive. The soul assimilating array was destroyed. He could use Yiqing Luo's Divine Phoenix Profound Heart Jade to replace it. But the Blood Soul Curse's blood pool was destroyed. Chapter 1690. When Yiqing Luo heard that, her charming eyes fixed on the King of Darkness as she couldn't help but shiver. No wonder the King of Darkness didn't care about the life and death of a vessel like her. He wanted to tear her into pieces. As it turned out, the King of Darkness was completely enraged, and he only wanted to kill her. Is there any way to deal with him? The other party was the King of Darkness, the King of Darkness that could only be sealed by the upper realm. She was a profound practitioner of the profound sky continent. In the eyes of the King of Darkness, it was nothing. Old Man Song finally understood the reason why the King of Darkness had revealed his true body. He should know how to deal with the King of Darkness, right? However, very quickly, Old Man Song directly extinguished Yiqing Luo's hope. Let's not talk about now. I'm just a spirit body guardian, and I can't fight the King of Darkness. Even before I became a guardian, I wouldn't be a match for the King of Darkness. Old Man Song solemnly said, "But girl, you just got a sentence out of him. Maybe there's still a chance." Get information out of him? This meant that the King of Darkness could only stay awake for a short period of time. As long as they could avoid the King of Darkness attacks and hold on until the King of Darkness time was up, if he seized the opportunity, he might be able to make a move on the King of Darkness. Thinking of this, a cold glint flashed past Yiqing Luo's eyes. She is not a person who follows the rules. He was also a person who would seize every opportunity. Even if there was no chance, she would create one. The King of Darkness wanted to kill her. How could she not want to kill the King of Darkness? However, the King of Darkness was simply too powerful. Just 2 moves later, Yiqing Luo had already realized it. With her strength, it was likely that she wouldn't even be able to exchange a single blow with the King of Darkness. Vessel, just based on you? Even if you know that I don't have enough time, do you have the ability to delay me? King of Darkness laughed coldly. His tone was filled with disdain towards Yiqing Luo. This king will devour you completely, so that you will never be able to rise again. With a roar, the King of Darkness leaped into the air. His figure had already turned into a black afterimage. What came in front of him was a shockingly powerful aura, carrying with it a dense, mysterious Yin-Chi. Yiqing Luo's expression suddenly changed. That aura, powerful and arrogant. She didn't even have a chance to dodge the oppressive attack. Lass, don't be in such a hurry to be shocked. The current King of Darkness cannot be compared to when he was at his peak. His true strength is still sealed by the Saint Regent seal. The power he is releasing now is merely the tip of the iceberg. Old Man Song could also clearly feel that terrifying aura. His heart was filled with worry. Lass, if it's true, just use teleportation and the thunderclap incantation. As long as you can last until the King of Darkness awakens, he will be sealed again. If he wants to regain consciousness, I'm afraid it will take a few hundred years. That was to say, as long as she was confident that she could use these two secret techniques to evade the King of Darkness, she would be able to do so. The King of Darkness was sealed once more. She didn't have to worry about the King of Darkness knowing that she had the Azure Dew bracelet. A few hundred years later, not to mention whether or not she was still alive. Even if she really was alive, at that time, she would already have enough power to protect the Azure Dew bracelet. However, unless it was a last resort, Yiqing Luo still didn't want to use these two Azure Water Secret Arts. Give up resisting, give up struggling? Then, now, obediently let this king devour you. Chapter 1691. After King of Darkness finished his words, he charged towards Yiqing Luo's direction. His speed was extremely fast. Just moments later, he was already close to Yiqing Luo's face. As compared to the burst of qi which he released earlier, it was even faster. Yiqing Luo felt her face turning slightly cold. A cold and gloomy intent seemed to freeze her face. When the King of Darkness got close, Lin Fan's eyes widened. He suddenly raised his palm and dispersed the wave of qi that he had released with a single palm strike. That powerful aura spread across the sky of the dark sacred region. A palace was in a state of turbulence. Yiqing Luo's heart trembled slightly as her charming eyes stared at that evil cold face which was just inches away from her. This King of Darkness. What on earth was he trying to do? That terrifying and overbearing qi wave was from him attacking her, trying to devour her. Why did she disperse that qi wave on her own? Yiqing Luo didn't feel that King of Darkness suddenly had a conscience and didn't want to kill her anymore. As though he saw the vigilance and suspicion in Yiqing Luo's eyes. King of Darkness's lips curled upwards as he revealed a smile. You're right, I suddenly don't want you to. His voice paused. Following that exquisite face was filled with a cold, murderous aura. He laughed coldly, treacherous and cold. Die so quickly. The last sentence was extremely cold. Yiqing Luo was unable to control the fear and agitation in her heart. Her petite body shrunk slightly as her eyes flashed with a complicated glow. The way to devour you is not only to kill you. King of Darkness looked at Yiqing Luo's face, which was gradually turning green in satisfaction. His smile turned even colder. Yiqing Luo had a bad premonition. As expected, King of Darkness's fingers suddenly grabbed Yiqing Luo's lower jaw. That ice-cold touch was like ice. Look carefully. This face of yours does suit this king's taste. King of Darkness's eyes were filled with a lustful expression. This face was indeed a stunner. Furthermore, killing this vessel wasn't enough to vent the anger in his heart. He wanted to destroy this vessel. Let this vessel taste despair. King of Darkness's eyes were filled with profound qi, and the vicious look in his eyes matched the lustful expression. Yiqing Luo's pupils suddenly widened. A look of surprise flashed across her eyes. That evil and cold face that was just inches away from him. If he moved a little closer, their lips would touch. His breath hit the skin of her face. Cold. It was like the cold air of an ice house. It was bone-chilling, unbearably cold. Most importantly, Yiqing Luo was extremely disgusted by his presence. The meaning behind the King of Darkness's words and the intense gaze in his eyes made her feel nauseous. She had never expected this. The King of Darkness actually used such a method to disgust her. Perhaps it was the disgust in Yiqing Luo's eyes that made the interest in the King of Darkness's eyes, and that colorful gaze became even more intense. His wrist suddenly slid down. He directly locked onto Yiqing Luo's waist, pressing Yiqing Luo's soft body onto his sturdy chest. Even though they were separated by clothes, Yiqing Luo could clearly feel the increasingly cold chill piercing into her skin. What are you trying to do? Yi-Ching Luo's eyes turned cold as she flicked her wrist and attacked the King of Darkness. He actually used such a method. Was he trying to humiliate her? She had to admit that this move by the King of Darkness was indeed the move that stirred up her emotions. If the King of Darkness was fighting against her, even if she wasn't able to defeat the King of Darkness, she would give it her all. But, Chapter 1692, King of Darkness's gaze was filled with an indescribable lust. This king has been sealed for 10,000 years and has never touched a woman. It just so happens that you're going to die by this king's hands. Why don't you let this king teach you the greatest joy of being a woman before you die? He abruptly tightened the grip on his arm. Yi-Ching Luo's body had no way to struggle free. Her entire body fell onto King of Darkness's body. The next moment, King of Darkness's hand slid onto Yi-Ching Luo's body. He actually started to tug on Yi-Ching Luo's belt. Yi-Ching Luo's face turned pale as she flipped her palm and swiftly stopped King of Darkness's actions. Following that, she quickly released her profound chi. Twin dragons emerged from a sea. Yi-Ching Luo cried out as she gripped her glower flame fan tightly and released the profound skill of the glower flame fan. Two flying fire dragons soared into the sky. Tyrannical, profound chi undulated as the two flying fire dragons circled around. King of Darkness's heart was filled with lust. He had never expected that Yi-Ching Luo still had the ability to resist at this moment. Instantly, she was engulfed by the two fire dragons. Yi-Ching Luo's body, with the help of the flying fire dragons, swiftly escaped from King of Darkness's embrace. She took a few steps back. Her fingers swiftly fastened the belt on her body. Her pair of clear and charming eyes were already tainted with a thin layer of coldness. At the same time, King of Darkness reacted at the instant when he was engulfed by the fire dragons. But he waved his sleeves lightly. The vast, profound Yin-Chi dissipated the two fire dragons which were entangled in the sky. King of Darkness's gaze followed Yi-Ching Luo's direction. There was no longer any lust in his eyes. Instead, it was a cold and sinister sneer. Looks like this king has found your weakness. He laughed softly as his evil face was filled with a chilly intent. He licked his dry lips, and the possessive desire in his eyes made him look even more treacherous. This king happens to fall for this trick of yours. Really? Yi-Ching Luo's brows rose as her icy cold eyes curved upwards. She tightened her grip on the glowing flame fan and scoffed. Unfortunately, I find you disgusting. The King of Darkness's eyes darkened, and her exquisite face was covered by a layer of black Yin-Chi. He sneered as his entire body abruptly charged downwards, and a burst of strong chi once again neared Yi-Ching Luo. Yi-Ching Luo shifted her feet. A devilish mystic light spread out from his fingertips. She would never make the same mistake again. She would never give the King of Darkness the chance to do so. A flowing red light flashed in his eyes. The profound energy released from her entire body gradually rose. In just a moment, a transparent protective shield had formed around her body. Just as the terrifying glint, which carried the profound Yin-Chi, neared Yi-Ching Luo. Boom! Yi-Ching Luo's defensive shield exploded with a loud bang. Coincidentally, the King of Darkness's figure was right next to Yi-Ching Luo. His face was blasted by the explosion of the protective shield. At the same time, Yi-Ching Luo had already executed her footwork and swiftly moved out of the explosion radius. Yi-Ching Luo's profound energy was not able to cause much harm to the King of Darkness. Even if the King of Darkness was blasted away, at most, it would only cause some superficial injuries to the King of Darkness. For example now, after the thousands of strands of demonic red light dissipated, the King of Darkness's elegant black hair had been blown into curls. His black robe had several holes in it. Chapter 1693. King of Darkness was also stunned by the explosion. He stood there in a daze as he lowered his head to look at his burnt clothes. The expression on the man's face kept changing. After some time, King of Darkness's hands trembled as he touched his curly black hair. His eyes were filled with a storm. Damn vessel, you actually dare to scheme against me. A hoarse growl came out from King of Darkness's mouth. The current him didn't have any feelings for Yi Qing Luo at all. He only wanted to kill Yi Qing Luo. Kill Yi Qing Luo, ah. Hearing King of Darkness's raging voice, Yi Qing Luo heaved a sigh of relief, being stared at by those disgusting things that were neither human nor ghost. She only felt disgusted, even though he only used that gaze to look at her. She felt extremely disgusted, not to mention the fact that she was being groped by him, wanting to grope her body. If it wasn't for the fact that she knew that King of Darkness's current body wasn't his original body, she definitely wanted to poison him. To poison this disgusting species who coveted her beauty. To make him unable to have sex. Blowing him into curly hair was already considered as her mercy. Yi Qing Luo's eyes flashed with a cold glint as she snorted. Do you think I'm someone you can touch? I'm telling you, if you dare to touch me once, I will blow you up once. Why don't you try and see if you can kill me first, or if I can blow up all the hair on your body into big curly hairs. Good job. King of Darkness's furious eyes swept past Yi Qing Luo. A profound in-chi whirlpool instantly shot out from his body. That whirlpool swiftly twisted and turned, as though it was going to swallow the heaven and earth. That horrifying chi condensed into a whirlpool. It showed the fury in King of Darkness's heart. Yi Qing Luo's expression congealed. That power was simply too strong. It was so strong that she felt a chill down her spine. In the end, it was because her ability wasn't strong enough. She thought that she had advanced to the sky profound stage. She had enough ability to protect those brothers whom she cared about. But in the end, she still let her own brothers take the risk. Or, in front of the stronger King of Darkness, she felt fear. If she was strong enough, he wouldn't be in such a passive position. Yi Qing Luo's eyes overflowed with a complicated glint. Her slender fingers curled up one by one. Her entire body was tense, and her expression was solemn as she stared at the King of Darkness. In his mind, he constantly analyzed the current situation of the battle, and in his mind, he had already constructed many ways to escape unscathed. I say, lass, using your beauty to stall for time just now was the best way to do it, and it wouldn't draw blood. Why didn't you grasp the opportunity? Old Man Song sighed helplessly when he saw her tense and worried expression. Yi Qing Luo's eyes flickered slightly. I can't accept any man other than Ah Xian touching me with that kind of feelings. No one but Ah Xian. Honey trap. She did have the capital to do so. Moreover, he had trained this skill for a long time in the hands of the old men of the Yi clan. But she had never bothered to use a honey trap. There was no need to use a honey trap. But now, she already had Ah Xian. It was even more impossible for her to seduce a man other than Ah Xian. She would rather use a battle with the King of Darkness to stall for time. She didn't want the King of Darkness to touch her body. Old Man Song remained silent. He didn't speak again. Chapter 1694. Vessel, since you insist on choosing a painful path to death, then I will definitely satisfy you. King of Darkness laughed sinisterly. Just as he finished his words, the whirlpool around him started to spin rapidly. Yi Qing Luo felt her chest tightening. Her body was pushed into midair by something. Following that, her body flew backwards. He smashed into the wall beside him. She gave a dull moan as her body fell onto the ground. Blood flowed out from the corner of her lips. Her brows were tightly knitted as she panted in pain. She felt as if her 5 viscera and 6 bowels had been shattered. What kind of horrifying power was that? Yi Qing Luo was still lying on the ground. She couldn't understand what King of Darkness had done to actually send her flying in such a short period of time. She thought that with the group of old men in her past life, learning various Yi family's footwork, her speed in the Nirvana realm was absolutely heaven-defying. But she couldn't see through King of Darkness's speed at all. How strong was he exactly? Looking at Yi Qing Luo lying on the ground. Her green and white uniform was stained with fresh blood. She didn't know if this fresh blood was from the expanding blood pool or Yi Qing Luo's blood. King of Darkness's malicious eyes were extremely cold and sinister. He looked at Yi Qing Luo coldly as his lips curled up in ridicule. That's it? This king hasn't warmed up enough. Don't you die now. He took a step forward and walked to Yi Qing Luo's side as he looked down at her from above. Seeing that she had no resistance at all, gritting her teeth silently, King of Darkness laughed delightfully. Don't die too early before this king has enjoyed himself to his heart's content. Saying that, he flipped his sleeves again. A burst of dense, profound energy continued to increase in strength. Yi Qing Luo only felt her body being squeezed by a burst of energy as she was forcefully pushed down onto the ground. She heard a kacha sound. The ground beneath him had already been shattered by this powerful force. Yi Qing Luo could clearly hear the sound of her bones breaking. He was really ruthless. What a terrifying force. Yi Qing Luo endured the intense pain. She didn't make a single sound. Her pair of charming eyes exuded an extremely, piercingly cold chill. That's right. It's this gaze. It's this gaze that makes this king feel your despair and hatred. The King of Darkness sneered. His eyes, which were filled with hostility, were filled with a joyful smile. 2 consecutive attacks. Yi Qing Luo didn't even have a chance to react. His body had already suffered serious internal injuries. The King of Darkness didn't want to play her to death. His attacks were extremely heavy, aiming for the vitals without any mercy. However, he managed to avoid taking her vital parts. Did he want to see her lying on the ground in despair, unable to move, waiting for death? Did he want her to taste the taste of despair? Every time Yi Qing Luo breathed, she felt an extreme pain coming from within her body. She held back and slowed her breathing. Girl, you have no way of contending against his strength, but your speed is definitely above his. Old man Song's voice suddenly entered her mind. Speed? She couldn't even move now. How could they compete with him in speed? Furthermore, she couldn't see through the King of Darkness' attack trajectory. Apparently, the King of Darkness's speed was above hers. Old man Song hesitated for a moment before spitting out 2 words. Blink. Blink? Yi Qing Luo clutched her wound as she pursed her pink lips. Blink could indeed surpass the King of Darkness's speed. But she didn't want to expose the Azure Dew bracelet. Chapter 1695. Lass, I believe in your ability. Old man Song could feel the worry in Yi Qing Luo's heart as he laughed lightly. His tone was filled with trust. Yi Qing Luo's pink lips pursed even tighter. Old man Song's relaxed and trusting tone. It made her heart ache even more. She knew that Old Man Song was pretending to be relaxed in order for her to give it her all. Her slender fingers curled up tightly. Her fingertips had turned white from being clenched so tightly. Her enchanting eyes were fixated on the King of Darkness. Vessel, how does it feel to wait for death and despair? King of Darkness's lips curled slightly as his eyes turned cold, like a wild beast eyeing its prey. He licked his lips greedily, as though he was toying with his prey in the palm of his hand, which made him extremely satisfied. Yi Qing Luo's breathing calmed down, quietly staring at his figure. Tightly, she shut her eyes. She didn't reply, didn't reveal any fearful expression. There wasn't any hatred in her eyes. This caused the perverted feeling in the King of Darkness's heart to dissipate. His eyes turned cold as he congealed his profound in-chi once again as he attacked Yi Qing Luo. Yi Qing Luo clenched her fists tightly. Suddenly, her fingertips moved. The glower flame fan shot out a few strong air currents. In a split second, her eyes were filled with a demonic red glow. It went straight into King of Darkness's eyes. At the same time, Yi Qing Luo silently recited the blink movement secret method. Her figure swayed. In a blink of an eye, she had already moved to the open palace door. She held onto the palace door to maintain her balance. Before King of Darkness could react, she swiftly stretched out her hand and hit a few acupoints on her body. Following that, she took out some pills from the profound phoenix ring and swallowed them. In just a few breaths, Yi Qing Luo had no way to do any simple treatment on herself. King of Darkness had already sensed the change in her aura. You, King of Darkness turned his head and followed the aura towards the palace door. His evil, cold eyes stared at Yiqing Luo in astonishment, as though he couldn't believe it. Yiqing Luo actually had the ability to avoid his attack. After swallowing the pills, Yiqing Luo's pain was suppressed and her stamina gradually recovered. She held onto the palace gate and slowly straightened her body. That's not bad. Struggling before death makes me excited. King of Darkness couldn't be bothered to find out how Yiqing Luo managed to escape from his attack. In his eyes, no matter how Yiqing Luo tried to escape, they would all die in his hands. He sneered and his figure flickered. Yiqing Luo narrowed her eyes as she sensed the fluctuation in the air, the feeling of flowing over. She furrowed her brows and reacted quickly. Using her footwork, she immediately headed out of the palace. You think that I can't leave the dark sanctuary? The King of Darkness laughed sinisterly when he saw Yiqing Luo's actions. Yiqing Luo was shocked. Just as he stepped out of the palace gate, the King of Darkness appeared in front of her. His feet happened to be standing right outside the palace gate. That straight and slender figure, that black robe full of holes fluttering in the wind. Yiqing Luo's footsteps halted as she swiftly retreated. She thought that even though the King of Darkness had revealed his true body in a fit of rage, the King of Darkness still had a way to deal with him. But in the end, he was still sealed by the Saint-level seal. By right, his true body should not be able to leave the Dark Sanctuary. But right now, the King of Darkness was still able to stand at the entrance of the Dark Sanctuary's palace. He could leave the Dark Sanctuary's palace, and even if she dashed out of the palace gate, she was unable to break through that reverse enchantment. Looking at the astonishment in Yiqing Luo's eyes, King of Darkness gave a low laugh. Stretching out his hand, he suddenly clasped Yiqing Luo's neck. Chapter 1696. The tightness on her neck made Yiqing Luo's face flushed red. King of Darkness squinted his eyes as he gave a sinister mocking laugh. Little lass, you are indeed a talent. No wonder you could disrupt my plans time and time again. No wonder she was the vessel of the divine phoenix, profound jade. At such a young age, her willpower was so strong. She was even able to evade several strikes under his relentless attacks. Such innate talent. If she couldn't be used by him, he had to destroy her before she grew up. Otherwise, she would be a hidden danger in the future. Yiqing Luo's face turned pale. Her sharp fingers dug deep into the flesh of the King of Darkness. Her eyes were still cold, and her aura was fully unleashed. She didn't look like she was being controlled by someone. Her voice was hoarse as she spoke with difficulty. Not only will I destroy your plans, I can also destroy you. King of Darkness's dark and deep eyes flashed. Following that, he burst out into a cold laugh. Then let me see what other abilities you have. In King of Darkness's eyes, Yiqing Luo was a piece of meat on the chopping board, waiting to be slaughtered. His eyes turned cold as he suddenly stretched out his other hand and dug towards Yiqing Luo's heart. Before I devour you, this piece of divine phoenix profound jade must not be wasted. His sinister voice was filled with coldness and ridicule. Just as his hand was about to reach Yiqing Luo's chest, all of a sudden, a bolt of lightning flashed across the sky. The ball of light landed on the arm of the King of Darkness. King of Darkness screamed miserably. The hand which was on Yiqing Luo's neck was numbed by the lightning as it relaxed. Yiqing Luo's body fell limply onto the ground. She recited the incantation and her figure flashed. She immediately teleported away from King of Darkness's attack range. The lightning ball revolved around the arm of the King of Darkness, emitting sparks of electricity. The stinging pain from the electric shock and the numbness all over his body made his astonished expression look extremely comical. Thunderclap incantation. You know the thunderclap incantation. King of Darkness's voice was filled with disbelief. He looked at Yiqing Luo, who was standing 10 meters away, and his eyes were filled with madness. There's still teleportation. How could anyone in the Nirvana realm use the secret arts of the immortal realm? He forcefully endured the electric current in his arm, his eyes filled with a thick malevolence. Who are you? Who the hell are you? The King of Darkness asked in a frenzy. A pair of eyes, flushed red. Yiqing Luo's sharp senses detected a trace of extreme fear in his frenzied questioning. That's right, it was fear. The King of Darkness was afraid of the thunderclap art and teleportation. Just now he said, "Is this a secret technique of the divine world? Divine realm? The divine realm of the highest plane in the upper realm?" The King of Darkness was not the only one in disbelief. She was also stunned. Good. How did the reward of the Purgatory Pagoda become the reward of the divine world? No wonder. Old Man Song had always warned her not to casually use it. No, it's impossible for you to be her. Suddenly, the crazed King of Darkness started to laugh coldly. That crazy look on his face. He looked like a madman. He lowered his head and looked at his arm, which was still flowing with electricity. Suddenly, he clenched his fists tightly. A burst of profound yin qi instantly dispersed the layer of electricity. You are indeed not her. If it's her thunderclap art can shatter this king's physical body. Ha! Seeing the electricity dispersed, King of Darkness's eyes revealed an ecstatic expression. Chapter 1697. Hearing King of Darkness's words, Yiqing Luo's heart slowly calmed down. Luckily, King of Darkness's attention was only focused on the secret manual. He didn't think about the Azure Dew bracelet. But who was the she that King of Darkness was referring to? The Thunder Crash arts which King of Darkness was afraid of was executed by that she. That person, a single Thunder Crash arts, could shatter King of Darkness's physical body? How powerful was that person? But it was because of the existence of that she. Now, she could unleash her blink movement and Thunder Crash arts. Think that you can go against me just by relying on the Thunder Crash arts? He. King of Darkness saw Yiqing Luo's burning battle intent and snorted in disdain. When he first saw Yiqing Luo executing the Thunder Crash arts, his heart had indeed felt terrified. One must know that 10,000 years ago, the person who sealed him in the dark sacred region used this Thunder Crash arts to shatter his physical body. But this vessel was not able to unleash a tenth of the Thunder Crash arts' power. To him, it was not a threat at all. On account of the Thunder Crash arts, I will not let you die so easily. King of Darkness squinted his eyes as he charged forward with a dense, profound yin qi. His voice paused as his smile turned sinister and demonic. I want to extract your soul, devouring your soul. I will be able to inherit everything you know, including Thunder Crash arts. King of Darkness's eyes were filled with excitement. Apparently, he was extremely interested in the Thunder Crash arts, which shattered his physical body 10,000 years ago. Yiqing Luo looked at him coldly as she sneered. Then you have to have the chance to chase up to me first. The moment her words ended, Yiqing Luo's body suddenly moved. This time, coupled with the speed of the blink movement secret technique. King of Darkness was totally unable to see through Yiqing Luo's movements. On the contrary, when the blink movement was raised to the maximum, Yiqing Luo was able to see all of King of Darkness's attacks. When King of Darkness's attack was about to hit her, Yiqing Luo speedily executed her blink movement. Then, a thunderclap incantation appeared on his fingertips. Lightning flashed and thunder rumbled. A thunderbolt that was even more violent than a lightning ball just now struck down from the sky. Coincidentally, it landed on the King of Darkness. That head of black hair, which was originally plotted by Yiqing Luo and exploded into curly hair. This time, it was struck by the lightning, even more messy and chaotic. You! The King of Darkness glared at her and cursed in her heart. She turned around and unleashed an even more ferocious attack. However, this time around, the King of Darkness wanted to use his ability to suppress Yiqing Luo and use his speed to restrain her. But he was no match for Yiqing Luo's teleportation. They exchanged a few moves in a row. The King of Darkness' patience was running out. The attacks were gradually unable to hit Yiqing Luo as they gradually sped up, gradually becoming more ferocious. But he still wasn't able to touch the corner of Yiqing Luo's clothes. This caused the King of Darkness's mental state to explode. The anger in his heart was also growing. The King of Darkness was enraged. Yiqing Luo wasn't as relaxed as she looked on the surface. Using teleportation and the thunderclap incantation didn't mean that he didn't need to rely on any power. All these required the support of profound qi. Using two secret techniques at the same time required a large amount of profound qi. She could restrain the King of Darkness within a short period of time and not hurt herself. But her time was limited. Once the supply of profound qi was insufficient, she would probably deplete her profound qi and give the King of Darkness a chance. She only hoped that. Chapter 1698. Yiqing Luo continued to use the combination of the Glower Flame Fan and the Thundercrash Manual to attack the King of Darkness. Teleportation became more and more agile under her control. The King of Darkness had no way of tracking her. In just a short while, the situation between the two of them gradually reversed. More and more wounds appeared on the King of Darkness' body. He didn't know if it was because he was angry or because the time limit was almost up. The King of Darkness's eyes were bloodshot as he stared at Yiqing Luo with hatred. His gloomy gaze swept up the storm. The mysterious yin qi spread around his body, forming a huge vortex. In an instant, all the power suddenly burst out. Yiqing Luo's expression congealed. That terrifying and powerful energy made Yiqing Luo feel pressured. Her strength was far inferior to the King of Darkness. If the King of Darkness insisted on fighting her head-on, she had no chance of winning. She would never allow the King of Darkness to get close to her. Yiqing Luo's eyes flashed. He quickly widened the distance between them. The King of Darkness stood rooted to the ground. The mysterious yin qi circled around his body and turned into a huge vortex. The vortex towered high, engulfing heaven and earth as if it wanted to break through the darkness domain. That powerful force was unstoppable. Yiqing Luo was shocked. She narrowed her eyes and unleashed her profound energy. Red light surged out from her body and slashed towards the King of Darkness. However, after her attack came into contact with the swirling vortex, it was as if she was about to explode. He was instantly devoured by the vortex and vanished. There wasn't even a flickering streak of light. Yiqing Luo's expression changed. He could feel that the dark force around the King of Darkness was still increasing. The vortex that was formed by the dense, mysterious yin qi was also expanding continuously. Yiqing Luo's heart surged with an ominous premonition. What was the King of Darkness trying to do? What does he want to do? Oh no, little girl, he wants to forcefully absorb your soul. Old man Tsong, who was hidden within the azure dew bracelet, sensed this powerful energy and immediately reacted, urgently calling out a warning. Yiqing Luo was shocked. He could still move forward and absorb her soul. Was there a need to be so heaven-defying? You shouldn't know the soul assimilating array, right? The soul assimilating array takes too long. How can he set it up by himself? Old man Tsong snorted. The dark spells that the pharaohs know were all taught by the King of Darkness. What do you think? Yiqing Luo remained silent. As it turned out, the King of Darkness was the ancestor of all dark curses. The soul assimilating array is an array that will only be used when absorbing a large number of souls. Old man Tsong continued to explain. What he wants to absorb is your soul alone. A soul assimilating spell is enough. Soul absorbing spell? Yiqing Luo knitted her brows tightly. How do we stop it? When the King of Darkness was casting the curse, her attacks weren't able to affect him at all. Disrupt his spiritual power. Old man Tsong replied. Mental strength? That's right. Dark curses required mental power to cast. All he had to do was disrupt the King of Darkness' mental power. Naturally, this curse could not be continued. Yiqing Luo's eyes lit up. He took out a white jade bottle from the profound phoenix ring. That bottle gave off the exact same smell as the one she used to dupe Pharaoh He. She threw the bottle into the air and waved her Glower Flame Fan. A hurricane swept up the bottle and sent it flying towards the direction of the King of Darkness. Dong! A loud crisp sound was heard. That bottle had yet to get close to the King of Darkness. Chapter 1699. The white medicinal powder started to fall. Yi Qing Luo retreated to avoid it. The black profound Inshi wrapped the medicinal powder into a ball. Following that, a strong wind started to blow. The white powder covered the sky and earth as it flew towards her. K. Seeing this situation, Yi Qing Luo couldn't help but curse. What the hell, couldn't they have a good fight? While conjuring the soul-absorbing spell, she could still use the profound Inshi to counterattack. The moment one came into contact with this white medicinal powder, one's mental energy would be suppressed. Even she would not be an exception. Yi Qing Luo immediately displayed her footwork as she opened up the glower flame fan in her hands and created a whirlwind. She threw the medicinal powder towards the direction of the profound Inshi. At the same time, her figure flickered. She teleported to the side of the King of Darkness. King of Darkness's malicious eyes flashed. A sinister chill shot out from the bottom of his eyes. A burst of profound Inshi blocked Yi Qing Luo's path. Yi Qing Luo didn't bother with the profound Inshi. She moved agilely towards the King of Darkness. Her fingertips held onto another white jade medicinal bottle as she bit open the cap and poured it onto the King of Darkness. But just as the white jade medicinal bottle was about to fall, suddenly she saw the King of Darkness raise his head. A treacherous sneer appeared on that exquisite and bewitching face. His eyes, which were filled with profound Inshi, were filled with murderous intent. Yi Qing Luo's heart trembled. She realized something. She smashed the medicinal bottle onto the King of Darkness's body. Following that, she silently chanted to teleport away. But it was too late. The corners of the King of Darkness's lips curled upwards as a sinister smile surfaced on his face. This was the moment he was waiting for Yi Qing Luo to fall into his trap. The King of Darkness's hand gesture changed. Yi Qing Luo only felt that her body had suddenly lost the ability to move. Following that, a tearing sensation spread from her heart to every corner of her body. She couldn't even teleport away. Enduring the pain that almost made her faint, she furrowed her brows and used her willpower to quickly move her body away. But her body seemed to be nailed to the ground. He stood perfectly straight on the spot, unable to move at all. Small vessel. No one in this world is able to escape from the soul-absorbing curse. The King of Darkness, who had his face covered in powder, laughed sinisterly as he looked at Yi Qing Luo. He raised his sleeve and used the burnt sleeve of his robe to wipe the powder off his face. It didn't matter if the powder fell on his body. Yi Qing Luo's soul was captured by the soul-absorbing curse. Even if he wasn't able to utilize his mental energy, he could easily swallow Yi Qing Luo's soul. He laughed sinisterly, his eyes filled with a lustful and cold light. Yi Qing Luo knitted her brows tightly as she gritted her teeth and tried to move her body. She could clearly feel that the soul in her body was gradually being torn apart from this body. The sharp pain of being torn apart. It penetrated her soul as if it wanted to shatter it. The soul-absorbing spell could absorb a human soul, forcefully separating the soul from the body. Yi Qing Luo knew that once her soul left her body, the King of Darkness would definitely dig out her profound heart jade and devour her soul. Once the soul was devoured, her soul would scatter and she would disappear from this world for all eternity. Moreover, the secret of the Azure Dew bracelet would be exposed. No way. She couldn't let her soul be absorbed. Still struggling, the King of Darkness looked at Yi Qing Luo's determined gaze as his eyes were filled with ridicule. He stretched out his hand and grabbed Yi Qing Luo's collar.